Chapter 2:11 The unfathomable Gu and Xiao Dai ignored Ji Hantian's provocation and fixed his gaze on the heaven-cutting axe. Everyone looked at him. Over the years, there were countless cultivators who came to challenge the heaven-cutting axe, but few had such a commanding presence like him. The number one cultivator in Lingxia, it sounded quite intimidating. Though Xiao Dai appeared calm, in fact, he was very nervous inside. In recent years, Sword Venerable Fudeo's prestige was incredibly strong, spreading widely even within the spirit realm. Xiao Dai knew he could not possibly be a match for Sword Venerable Fudao, but since the heaven-cutting axe was merely a treasure left behind by Sword Venerable Fudao, he still had confidence in lifting it. He raised his right hand and gripped the handle of the axe. At the moment he grasped it, he felt an unprecedented heaviness. His brows furrowed, and he immediately began to exert force. Rumble! The heavenly repair platform quaked, and everyone watched him nervously. No matter which sect they were from, the cultivators on the platform did not want him to lift it. The disciples of the Supreme Sect cared about face, while disciples from other sects cared about opportunity. Who wouldn't want to become the heir of Sword Venerable Fudao? To this day, Sword Venerable Fudao had become a figure of worship for all sects under 3 dynasties. Under Guan, the blood prison great saint secretly marveled. He too wanted to try lifting the heaven-cutting axe. So far, the only person he couldn't surpass was the one on his back. This fellow named Xiao Dai was different. The blood prison great saint could sense that Xiao Dai's cultivation level was even higher than his own. If Xiao Dai couldn't move the axe, then he would have no hope. This made him even more wary of Sword Venerable Fudao. Just leaving a Dharma treasure on the platform, and over the years, no one could lift it, let alone move it. It was unimaginable how high Sword Venerable Fudeo's cultivation realm must be. Xiao Dai also started using a secret technique, making his momentum soar, causing even the outer city to tremble. More and more figures appeared on the heavenly repair platform, all high-ranking members of the Supreme Sect. They looked at Xiao Dai with eyes full of fear. But as they watched, the great cultivators of the Supreme Sect began to smile. The momentum was terrifying, but it was useless. If it couldn't be lifted, it just couldn't be lifted. Zuijian watched Xiao Dai's contorted face with silent glee. Let him be arrogant. With such limited skills, he dared to challenge the heaven-cutting axe? In the end, Xiao Dai did not become like Shen Tianyi or Ji Shenling. He only attempted for a few breaths before his momentum suddenly receded. He stood straight, withdrew his right hand and said, as expected of Sword Venerable Fudao, I, Xiao Dai, admit defeat. His voice echoed throughout the city, resonating endlessly. Even though his words were boastful, many people wanted to ask who he was, having never heard of him before. But recalling Xiao Dai's earlier momentum, no one dared offend him. Not daring to offend Xiao Dai, they all praised Sword Venerable Fudao instead. Suddenly, the heavenly repair platform became lively, and everyone started discussing the strength of Sword Venerable Fudao. Xiao Dai looked at Ji Hantian and snorted, "Where is your sect leader? I want to meet him." Ji Hantian nodded, then motioned for Xiao Dai to follow. The two quickly left the outer city. Guan patted the back of the blood prison great saint, signaling it could go. After leaving the outer city, Guan said leisurely, "In a few years, I will let you reach the 2nd level, able to speak human words." Hearing this, the blood prison great saint's eyes brightened. Not being able to speak was really unbearable. He couldn't wait to curse those ants who kept touching him all day long. But remember, there are things you can say and things you can't, Guan reminded. The blood prison great saint nodded quickly. Actually, there wasn't much he could say, as he had no idea how strong Guan really was. Day by day passed, and it came to the end of summer. On the peak of the mountain north of Mystic Valley, Guan was sparring with Chu Jingfeng in swordsmanship. While swinging his sword, Guan's divine sense spread out, surveying the continent inside and out. He saw a heaven and earth flying immortal traversing the sky, descending to the mortal world at the eastern end of the firmament. Over the years, he saw many figures coming and going between heaven and earth. Though heaven and earth flying immortals were rare, at his level, he could see at least one every day, showing how vast this mortal world was. Heaven and earth flying immortals were not the strongest. Even at the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, Gu and his divine sense could not cover the entire mortal world. No wonder it was called the Great Heavenly Spirit Land. This mortal world was truly vast. For Guin, the bigger this world was, the better. The larger the world, the smaller and more insignificant he felt. After a while, Guin sensed a vast aura erupting from the eastern direction, far from the continent, even farther than Immortal Seeking Island. But that aura made his heart tremble. It was very powerful. It didn't seem like the aura of a living being's cultivation, but rather some kind of supreme treasure. Could it be that someone from beyond the heavens came for this mysterious supreme treasure? It seemed highly possible to Guin. At this moment, Chu Jingfeng sheathed his sword, gasping, "I'm exhausted, can't match you." He looked at Guin with a complex expression. Every time he felt his swordsmanship had improved significantly, he would spar with Guin. Each time, it seemed he was about to win, but the result was always defeat. The two competed in swordsmanship without using spiritual power, purely relying on qi. Of course, if he couldn't defeat Guin before his qi was depleted, it meant his swordsmanship wasn't superior to Gu's. Guin smiled. "Just a little more, you are much stronger than before." Chu Jingfeng wiped the sweat off his forehead and stared at Guin, asking, "Do you mean you are also improving, or have you been holding back?" He increasingly felt that Guin was unfathomable. Initially, he was merely grateful to Guin, but now he felt Guin was either a peerless genius or a high-level cultivator hiding his cultivation. He thought back to the years when the demon of greed caused chaos. The demon of greed had perished in Guin's house, but to this day, no one discovered who had saved Guin. Could it be Guin himself? Guin laughed. "Hey, I'm at the 9th level of the Foundation Establishment realm, about to reach core formation. Isn't it normal to beat you? Don't forget, I'm ranked 500th on the golden list." Seeing his smug expression, Chu Jingfeng couldn't help but shake his head and smile. Right, why overthink? In any case, he was now a cripple, weaker than everyone. After chatting for a while longer, Guin gripped his heavenly residence sword and descended the mountain, while Chu Jingfeng sat meditating on the cliff, reflecting on his earlier sword-fighting experiences. The next morning, the first Heavenly Strength Tournament officially began. It was said that over 50,000 cultivators and demons had signed up, covering all realms. There were even mysterious Mahayana cultivators participating. Guin did not participate. Instead, he headed to Tianya Valley to harvest medicinal herbs. This year, he aimed to reach a lifespan of 7 million years. After surpassing the 10 million year mark, he could look forward to a billion-year lifespan. A billion years would bring new abilities. The next time could be 10 billion or even 100 billion years for new functions. The thought was exciting to Guin. If a billion years passed in the real world, how high would his cultivation level be? The sky was clear, and the ocean was boundless. Immortal Seeking Island sat on the ocean, small as a speck of dust, but when viewed up close, its prosperity was evident. Guin returned to Immortal Seeking Island and exchanged all the medicinal herbs he had gathered over the past 3 years for top-grade spirit stones, then began to wander around. He planned to buy some high-quality cultivation elixirs to help Yi Lan and Xiaochuan. As for others, he wouldn't go out of his way to help them. Enjoying the elixirs he personally refined was good enough. Hu Xiaojian continued to lead the way for Guin, full of enthusiasm. By the way, Senior, several months ago, a conflict broke out between the Star Sea congregations and the 7 Stars Spirit Realm. Have you heard about it? Hu Xiaojian asked suddenly, his expression excited. Guin answered, "I've been secluded in training, unaware of this." "Why did they clash?" Hu Xiaojian lowered his voice. It said that a disciple of the Star Sea congregations was killed by the 7 Stars Spirit Realm, so a group of Star Sea congregation cultivators attacked islands affiliated with the 7 Stars Spirit Realm. They fought for 3 days and nights. Many say the Star Sea congregations and 7 Stars Spirit Realm are going to war. They have been at peace for 50,000 years, who knows if it's true. If these two top forces go to war, this ocean will be far from peaceful. Guin first thought of Xian Tianyi. Was Xian Tianyi's capability so great? On second thought, yes, a Mahayana cultivator of several hundred years was rare. Even on the ocean, he would be a top-tier talent. On Immortal's Seeking Island, Guwen had only seen a few. The two continued chatting as they moved forward. An hour later, Guwen had spent all his spirit stones, reaping abundant rewards. Spending on his junior brothers and sisters, he felt no regret, even if they were destined to die. He was willing to help them live a few hundred or thousand years longer. After dismissing Hu Shaojian, Guwen began to wander Immortal's Seeking Island on his own. Immortal's Seeking Island was large, with numerous cities. Cultivators, demons, and spirit beasts were everywhere, making the streets very lively. Suddenly, someone brushed past Guwen due to the person's peculiar attire. Guwen subconsciously threw a life-span detection. Nine-Finger Divine Lord, second layer of Traveling Immortal Realm 170800/190000/800000. 17,000 years? Was this 80,000-year maximum lifespan serious? Guwen was intrigued. The person's apparent cultivation was only at the Mahayana realm. Even as a 9th-level heaven and earth-flying immortal realm great cultivator, Guwen couldn't see through his true cultivation level, indicating this man's greatness. Of course, it was also possible that this person was not a wandering immortal, but had his cultivation level fall due to some reason. Guwen thought the latter was more likely. He didn't turn back and continued forward. However, the Nine-Finger Divine Lord stopped. He wore a black outfit like a wanderer. His clothes were not fancy, somewhat old, with a bamboo hat and a large wooden box on his back. He looked back, frowning under his hat, eyes filled with confusion. Was it a misperception? The Nine-Finger Divine Lord felt someone watching him earlier but saw no one when he looked back. The strongest on the street was just a loose immortal. He retracted his gaze and continued on his way. 30 minutes later, he arrived at a residence and met a man in a purple robe in the courtyard. "Senior, please have a seat," the purple-robed man said with a smile, respectfully. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord sat down, placing the large wooden box beside him. He calmly asked, "What business do you have with me?" The purple-robed man sat, waved his right hand, and a purple light barrier rose around the courtyard, then quickly disappeared. He looked at the Nine-Finger Divine Lord and whispered, "Senior, I have a lead on the Immortal Path supreme treasure you sought before. It is somewhat troublesome. It involves the 7 Stars Spirit Realm. Do you dare to venture there?" Chapter 212 Strange Aura. After brushing past the Nine-Finger Divine Lord, Guwen quickly left Immortal Seeking Island. Although the Nine-Finger Divine Lord couldn't threaten him at the moment, his age of 170,000 years made Guwen reluctant to associate with him. Guwen had no need to make connections with great powers. He just wanted to avoid trouble. After returning to the Supreme Sect, he went to watch the first cultivation conference every few days and found it quite interesting. The Supreme Sect created different treasures according to different realms, and it was said that the materials were brought from overseas by Xian Tianyi. The heaviest was a Mahayana realm treasure, heavier than a mountain. Because of this, the Supreme Sect also specially opened a venue and set up layers of restrictions to prevent the ground from collapsing. Since there was no combat, the first cultivation conference didn't last as long as previous events. In less than half a month, Xiao Dai won the first place and was conferred the title of Great Sage of the Heavenly Peak by the Supreme Sect. Afterwards, Xiao Dai announced his decision to join the Supreme Sect and become an elder, which took Guwen by surprise. What is the 7 Stars Spirit Realm up to? Sending a Mahayana realm cultivator to the Supreme Sect for no reason? Or are they planting a pawn? Guwen didn't ask LV Baitin. Even if Xiao Dai had bad intentions, he wasn't afraid. It only took one move to kill the Divine Soul True Lord, and it would be the same for Xiao Dai. However, after autumn arrived, Ji Hantian brought Xiao Dai to find Guwen, who happened to be in, so he received them in his building. Xiao Dai sat at the table, looked around the environment and asked, "Are you Panin?" Guwen, carrying a cup of tea to the table, responded, "I am Pan and may I ask what business you have with me, senior?" The Ji family had switched allegiance to the 7 Stars Spirit Realm, and now Ji Hantian brought Xiao Dai to find him, which made him think deeply. Sit down and talk, Ji Hantian said with a warm smile, even taking the initiative to pour tea for the two of them. Guan sat down and looked at Xiao Dai. Xiao Dai scrutinized him with an oppressive gaze. What do you think of the Holy Land, 7-star spirit realm? Xiao Dai asked. Guan was stunned and replied, the 7-star spirit realm is called a holy land. Naturally, I respect it. Why do you ask me this? Xiao Dai said, is Master Beauty from the Oblique Moon 3 Stars Cave in your writing meant to pay homage to the 7-star spirit realm? Master Beauty was the teacher of Sun Wukong, the protagonist of Journey to the West. Ever since Journey to the West became a hit, Master Beauty was often mentioned. Some even firmly believed that the Oblique Moon 3 Stars Cave, the Spirit Platform, and Square Inch Hill truly existed. Guan nodded. Since the Ji family had turned to the 7-star spirit realm, and Xiao Dai came from the 7-star spirit realm, Guan naturally had to go along with their thoughts. If these two still had doubts about him, he could only have Sword Venerable Fudao take action. Seeing Guan nod, Xiao Dai didn't seem pleased. Instead, he frowned and said, actually, the 7-star spirit realm is not as good as you think. Upon hearing this, Guan looked at him in amazement. What does this mean? Could it be that Xiao Dai harbored enmity toward the 7-star spirit realm? Ji Hantian chimed in. The previous great calamity of demons is related to the 7-star spirit realm. We sought you out because we feared you esteemed the 7-star spirit realm too much, and there are some things we need to tell you. Without waiting for Guan to respond, Ji Hantian explained the origins of the demon ancestor and evil demon, leaving Guan dumbfounded. Guan actually knew this long ago but had to act surprised while contemplating their intentions. After Ji Hantian finished, Xiao Dai said, the actions of the 7-star spirit realm disgust me deeply. Ever since I embarked on the immortal cultivation path, I wanted to be an immortal who saves the world. That was also why I chose to join the 7-star spirit realm. But a friend of mine exposed the crimes of the 7-star spirit realm. He came from the Lin family, whose ancestor was slain by Sword Venerable Fudao after attacking the Supreme Sect. Later, during the siege of the evil demon, the Lin family suffered heavy losses. Taking advantage of this, their adversaries within the 7-star spirit realm sought to exterminate them. Before fleeing, my friend left me a letter exposing the general misdeeds committed by the high-ups of the 6 Stars Cave against the Lin family. It took me years to fully accept these facts. Guan felt a sigh of lament at hearing that the Lin family had been abandoned by the 7 Stars spirit realm. Of course, the Lin family's annihilation was not undeserved, just infighting among dogs. Guan furrowed his brow and said, I am merely a minor cultivator in the Foundation establishment realm. Why are you telling me this? I cannot help you. Don't think of using Pan Ennis' name to expose the Holy Land. I cannot afford to provoke them. Ji Hantian smiled. Rest assured, we are not that reckless. The 7-star spirit realm is currently too powerful, and even the combined forces of the 3 dynasties can't shake it. We just hope you won't exalt the 7-star spirit realm in your books in the future. Xiao Dai nodded and said, exactly. Your influence is truly great. I used to disdain it until I read your Investiture of the Gods and Journey to the West, only then realizing your prowess. However, I liked your Supreme Immortal Venerable the most. The story of a comeback is more captivating. So that's what it's about. Guan found it both laughable and exasperating. It was just a coincidence. In fact, he was subtly hinting that the 7-star spirit realm resembled the Buddhism sect of Western Heaven. He pretended to contemplate and then reluctantly agreed to the matter. Seeing Guan seemingly hesitant, Ji Hantian and Xiao Dai didn't get angry. They too took a long time to process this information when they first learned about it. Not only did they have to expose the evil side of the 7-star spirit realm, but they also had to endure the pressure of confronting it directly. This was, after all, the most powerful force on the continent, with no equal. Guan couldn't help but ask, if the 7-star spirit realm wishes to enslave all beings, why engage in such roundabout methods? Even the combined forces of our 3 dynasties are no match for them, right? Xiao Dai replied, Not all of the seven-star spirit realm is evil. On the ocean, it remains a holy land of the righteous path. Our continent is merely one region of the seven-star spirit realm, governed by the 6 stars cave and 7 stars cave. Over the past tens of thousands of years, the high-ups of the 6 stars cave sought extreme ways to break through the heavenly destiny, deceiving superiors and subordinates, leading to these consequences. In the unseen world, there exists chief fortune and incense. If the beings of the continent detest the 7-star spirit realm, the other star caves would surely notice. If the beings are exterminated, it would also attract the attention of surrounding forces. Fire can't be wrapped in paper, and most cultivators within the 7-star spirit realm are unaware of this, considering themselves disciples of the righteous path. Once again, it was the parasites within the righteous path committing atrocities, but the parasites of the 7-star spirit realm were in existence that the beings of the continent couldn't contend with. Groom feigned a sudden realization, then asked a few more questions, even mentioning the ephemera sect. The reason the ephemera sect managed to come through the 9 Nether Road was due to the connection between its hierarch, Butcher Immortal Jing, and an elder in the 6 stars cave. The interwoven interests between the two were immeasurable. It seemed like they were allowing the ephemera sect to wreak havoc, but in reality, that elder wanted to devour the essence of the origin tree of ephemera. Once the 3 dynasties' cultivators sacrificed to the origin tree, the elder would strike, not only reaping benefits but also gaining a good reputation. The continent where the ephemera sect resided was also a subsidiary of the 7 stars spirit realm, extremely distant from here, so far that the cultivators of the ephemera sect had to rely on the 9 Nether Road. Without Mahayana realm cultivation, they would surely die en route through the ocean. The 3 continued their conversation for an hour. Before leaving, Ji Hantian urged Groom not to spread this matter. With the current strength of the Supreme Sect, it was completely inadequate to contend against the 7 stars spirit realm, so they had to endure. Groom rose to see them off. Watching Ji Hantian's departing figure, he very much wanted to ask about the Ji family's true stance towards the 7 stars spirit realm. Currently, there were very few members of the Ji family in the Supreme Sect, practically just Ji Hantian's lineage. Speaking of which, when the evil demon broke free, Ji Xiaoyu gave Groom a jade pendant to temporarily keep. It recorded the crimes of the 7 stars spirit realm, and after so many years, Ji Xiaoyu had yet to come to reclaim it. Using his divine sense, he noticed Ji Xiaoyu heading towards the Tianwei dynasty, moving towards the Eastern Ocean. What was this? Running away from marriage? Ji Hantian and Xiao Dai's visit did not affect Groom's life. In the following days, he visited the outer gate city more and more frequently. During the winter season, with heavy snow falling. In front of the law enforcement hall's gate in the outer gate city, Groom and Yi Lan stood before a statue. After taking the elixirs from Groom, Yi Lan said helplessly, "This is too much. Senior brother, don't you cultivate? Are you spending all day making elixirs for me?" Groom patted the snow off her shoulder and laughed softly, "Don't worry. What I gave you is only a small part. The majority I consumed myself. How could you be more important in my heart than myself?" Yi Lan glared at him but felt deeply moved inside. She wasn't foolish. Groom had definitely given her all the elixirs just to help her achieve the primordial reincarnation skill. She was puzzled. She felt her body was still good, able to live for another 200 years. Why was her senior brother so insistent on her achieving it in the next 20 years? Did her senior brother think she could only live for 120 or 30 years? She didn't ask much as she chose to trust her senior brother. The two started talking about Jinqin. For a long time, Groom bid farewell to Yi Lan and turned to leave. Watching him walk into the heavy snow, Yi Lan felt an inexplicable sense of loss. This feeling was strange. She felt she and her senior brother were growing further apart. After leaving the law enforcement hall, Groom began wandering the streets. Although the winter snow was heavy, some streets remained bustling. Arriving in the busy market area, a young disciple approached him and whispered, "The long-lost Supreme Secret Records, want to buy? The kind with illustrations." Groom gave him a look of disdain, bypassed him, and continued on his way. The young disciple persisted. After a dozen steps of entanglement, he finally gave up. So hypocritical. I spit on you. The young disciple cursed at Guan's back. As he walked, Guan unknowingly arrived near the book collection hall and suddenly noticed someone reading a book under an old tree beside the hall's courtyard wall. Reading Journey to the West, no less. Guan walked past and curiously asked, "Brother, why don't you read inside? There are seats in there." Foundation establishment realm, just average. Even his appearance was average. But Guan felt something off about his aura, so he used lifespan detection. Yuanying, Foundation Establishment Realm, 8th floor 124/400/5000 Maximum lifespan of 5,000 years? Why is the cultivation level so low? And the name is a woman's? Doesn't seem like she's disguised as a man. Yuanying looked up at Guan and replied, "It's too noisy inside. It's more peaceful here and I can feel the nature." Then she suddenly scrutinized Guan, hesitated, and asked, "Are you Guan?" Chapter 213 Divine Monarch arrives. Great opportunity. Hearing Yuanying's inquiry, Guan hesitated for a moment and asked, "I am. Do you know me, Taoist friend?" Yuanying's eyes lit up and she said, "My name is Yuanying. Senior brother Xian recommended that I come to find you. I was originally going directly to your Medicine Valley but couldn't resist coming to see Journey to the West first." Senior brother Xian Tianyi? That's right. We are from the same sect in the Star Sea congregations. You might not know about the Star Sea congregations. They are a great sect overseas. She started introducing the Star Sea congregations, and Guan listened attentively, pondering why Xian Tianyi had sent her. Guan became increasingly certain that Yuanying was indeed a woman, merely using some miracle technique to make her aura and appearance resemble that of a man. Such means were truly impressive. Without using divine sense to probe her, she could deceive someone at the 9th level of the heaven and earth flying immortal realm like Guan. How could it not be impressive? However, since she came from the Star Sea congregations, it made sense. The Star Sea congregations had a long history and had certainly produced heaven and earth flying immortals, possessing miracle techniques and divine skills that could deceive the senses of such beings. It wasn't unusual. Yuanying greatly admired Guan's investiture of the gods and Journey to the West, so her words were filled with praise. For a long time, Guan asked, "Taoist friend, you didn't come just to find me, did you? Coming all the way from overseas just for 2 books? He didn't believe it. Yuanying surely had other motives. Yuanying nodded and said, "To be honest, senior brother recommended me to sit at the Supreme Sect. But fearing I would be bored, he suggested I come to see you. I am indeed very interested in your books." To sit? Guan became even more curious. Yuanying said, "Senior brother fears that the 7 stars spirit realm might attack the Supreme Sect. With me around, they would at least not dare to act rashly." So impressive? This Foundation Establishment Realm's 6th layer cultivator seemed to have a significant background. What background could intimidate the 6 stars cave? Guan pondered while inquiring further, but Yuanying didn't want to say more. Later, Guan invited her to the 3rd Medicine Valley, but she refused politely, saying she had already rented a residence in the outer sect and would visit him if she felt bored. Guan was just being polite. Since she refused, he naturally wouldn't insist. Yuanying suddenly waved her sleeve, transforming into a slender woman in blue clothes, with fair skin and a beautiful face. Her eyes carried a playful and mischievous spirit. Her long hair reached her calves, the ends tied with a red scarf. Guan wasn't too stunned. Yuanying was indeed beautiful, but the most beautiful ones he had seen were Tian Yaoer and Ji Xiaoyu. The 2 women were equally matched in appearance, with different temperaments, making it hard to judge. "Remember, this is my true appearance." Yuanying winked at Guan, then waved her sleeve again, turning back into the ordinary male image from before. Guan feigned a shocked expression, greatly satisfying Yuanying's vanity. After leaving her residence address, she turned and left. After she had gone far, Guan finally smiled. Hopefully, this woman could truly become the trump card of the Supreme Sect. 5 years swiftly passed by. During these 5 years, the Supreme Sect encountered no major troubles and developed steadily. Gu Ennis' life continued as usual, moving between different medicine valleys and visiting the immortal Seeking Island about once a year. He also successfully formed a core and officially became a core formation realm disciple, causing quite a stir in the Third Medicine Valley. In the evening, Guin rode on the Blood Prison Great Saint back to Mystic Valley. He spoke, "From today onwards, your cultivation level will be at the second layer." As he finished speaking, he released a bit of the returning primordial spirit path from within the Blood Prison Great Saint, restoring its cultivation level to the second layer, akin to the Foundation Establishment realm. The Blood Prison Great Saint felt the spiritual power within its body surge, filled with excitement. It wanted to let out a loud roar but restrained itself. "Thank you, Master," the Blood Prison Great Saint said respectfully, its voice somewhat hoarse. It had been holding back for too long. Guin, sitting on its back, continued to offer instructions, which the beast listened to intently, fearing to offend Guin in the future. Once Guin finished, he placed his hand on the ox head of the Blood Prison Great Saint, imparting the primordial reincarnation skill to it. The Blood Prison Great Saint's eyes instantly turned vacant, its body halting. Guin wasn't in a hurry, beginning to admire the surrounding scenery. This was a sparse woodland located on a ridge, with views of other majestic mountains in the distance when turning one's head. Guin suddenly noticed a powerful aura approaching the Supreme Sect. Wasn't this the Nine-Finger Divine Lord he had encountered before on the immortal Seeking Island? Guin was curious. The Divine Lord's limit of 80,000 years of lifespan had left a deep impression on him. Why would such a powerful figure come to this backward continent? Compared to the surrounding sea areas and continents, the continent where the Supreme Sect was located was indeed backward, naturally due to the Seven Stars spirit realm. Every 10,000 years, they would instigate a major demonic calamity. How could the human race on this continent ever prosper? After the demonic calamity ended, the Seven Stars spirit realm was quite restrained, causing no further troubles but sending more disciples down the mountain to establish more connections with the secular world. Because of this, the Seven Stars spirit realm remained highly regarded in the immortal cultivation world, with many sects hoping to establish friendly relations with them. Guin silently pondered. After a long time, the Blood Prison Great Saint finally awakened, exclaiming excitedly, "What a domineering cultivation technique! Master, if I cultivate this technique for 1,000 years, can I ascend into the realm of immortal path in one leap?" It was willing to be Guin's steed for 1,000 years, with its cultivation sealed. It was perfectly suited to cultivate the primordial reincarnation skill during this time. That depends on whether you put in the effort. Guin replied with a smile. The Blood Prison Great Saint wanted to say more, but Guin patted its head, transmitting a message that someone was approaching, causing it to shut up immediately. "Let's continue on our way," Guin said. The Blood Prison Great Saint immediately resumed walking. The mountain path wasn't too steep, with the surrounding flowers and birds making the journey refreshing. Just as they exited the forest, a figure approached from ahead. It was the Nine-Finger Divine Lord, still wearing a straw hat and looking travel-worn. He came before the Blood Prison Great Saint and asked, "May I ask if you are a disciple of the Supreme Sect, brother?" The Blood Prison Great Saint stopped, scrutinizing the man but unable to discern his depth. "I am Guin of the Supreme Sect. May I ask what brings you to our sect, Taoist friend?" Guin raised his hand in greeting, smiling as he asked. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord had sought out Guin because he observed that among the local cultivators, Guin had the highest cultivation level, thus most likely belonged to the Supreme Sect. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord looked up at Guin, feeling as if he had seen him somewhere before. However, with Guin only at the core formation realm, having encountered many with similar cultivation levels in his travels, he paid it no mind. "I am Taoist Nine-Finger, a loose cultivator wandering the world. I've heard of the Supreme Sect's reputation and wish to join. May I ask if you could introduce me?" Guin naturally didn't refuse, agreeing readily, and began leading the way. The Blood Prison Great Saint walked at a leisurely pace, and the Nine-Finger Divine Lord was in no hurry, using the time to learn more about the Supreme Sect from Guin. He asked many questions, and Guin answered them all, his forthrightness furthering the Divine Lord's favorable impression of him. After a considerable time, the two grew closer. Taoist friend, could you tell me your cultivation level so that I can decide whether to take you to the outer sect or the inner sect? Guin asked. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord had observed on his journey that to become a high-ranking member of the Supreme Sect, one needed at least an Unification Realm cultivation. To be honest, I am at the 4th layer of the Unification Realm. Taoist Nine-Finger said hesitantly. What? Unification Realm? Guin exclaimed, making the blood prison great saint want to roll its eyes. In the face of Guin's excitement, Taoist Nine-Finger remained calm, not relishing the sense of superiority since his real cultivation level was at the 2nd layer of the wandering immortal realm. Energy cultivation, foundation establishment, core formation, nascent soul, divinity transformation, void crossing unification, mystic heart, Mahayana, nirvana, loose immortal, wandering immortal. Pretending to be at a lower realm, he was 4 major realms higher than Guin. In reality, he was 9 major realms higher than Guin. Along the way, Guin's curiosity grew, but his words didn't come across as obsequious, earning more respect from Taoist Nine-Finger. As evening approached, they arrived at Mystic Valley. Guin invited Taoist Nine-Finger to stay for the night, to which the latter had no objection. Upon entering Mystic Valley, a group of servant disciples greeted them warmly. Seeing these energy cultivation realm cultivators mingling closely with core formation realm Guin, the Nine-Finger Divine Lord noticed that Guin wasn't just respectful on the surface, he was also kind and non-arrogant towards those below him. Guin tasked Lu Jiojia with arranging accommodation for Taoist Nine-Finger before retiring to his room to rest. A while later, the Nine-Finger Divine Lord sat cross-legged on his bed, scanning the Supreme Sect with his divine sense. The strongest cultivator in the Supreme Sect was only at the Mahayana realm, posing no threat to him and offering little of interest. He even discovered the existence of the 8 scenic caves but paid it no mind. Everyone had secrets. Guin having a hidden cave was nothing notable, and the herbs within the 8 scenic caves did not attract him. Deep into the night, on the mountaintop, Chu Jingfeng sat meditating, absorbing energy. What cultivation technique are you practicing? The Nine-Finger Divine Lord's voice suddenly came, startling Chu Jingfeng, who turned to look. An hour ago, he had seen the Nine-Finger Divine Lord, who was addressed as senior by Guin. He quickly stood up, greeting him, a technique for absorbing energy, not worth mentioning. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord scrutinized him and said, "Your natural talents are decent. It's a pity you haven't laid a solid foundation. The technique you're practicing can improve your aptitude, but its effects are limited." Hearing this, Chu Jingfeng felt both relieved and somewhat uncomfortable. Daring to belittle the Taoist expansion skill? The Nine-Finger Divine Lord continued, "I can help you rebuild your foundation and restore your cultivation. Will you become my named disciple?" Chu Jingfeng hesitated and asked, "May I know the senior's identity?" The Nine-Finger Divine Lord's eyes flashed with appreciation. "I am a loose cultivator from overseas. I met your Valley Master. Tomorrow I will join the Supreme Sect. I am in Unification Realm cultivator. According to your Valley Master, becoming an elder shouldn't be difficult." Unification Realm cultivator. Chu Jingfeng was stunned. To him, Unification Realm cultivators were exalted, unapproachable beings. He gritted his teeth and said, "I need to discuss this with the Valley Master. He took me in when I was in distress. I can't just leave." "Haha, talk to him tomorrow then." The Nine-Finger Divine Lord laughed, then turned and left. This foolish boy didn't realize he had encountered a great fortune. Chapter 214 Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. The next morning, Nine-Finger Divine Lord brought Chu Jingfeng to find Guin and expressed his intention to take him as a disciple. Guin was pleasantly surprised and hastily had Chu Jingfeng express his gratitude to Nine-Finger Divine Lord. This gesture deeply moved Chu Jingfeng. Upon hearing that Nine-Fingered Divine Lord could help him restore his cultivation level, he felt tempted. However, given all that Guin had done for him over the years, he felt torn and unsure of how to decide. Nine-Fingered Divine Lord also held Guin in higher regard. He could see that Guin was genuinely happy for Chu Jingfeng. This was indeed true. Although Guin was powerful, in terms of knowledge and experience, he certainly couldn't match the 17,000-year-old Nine-Fingered Divine Lord. If the Divine Lord sincerely cared for Chu Jingfeng, it would be a turning point in Chu Jingfeng's life. Subsequently, Guin directly instructed Chu Jingfeng to acknowledge Nine-Fingered Divine Lord as his master, making the atmosphere very harmonious. An hour later, they used the teleportation array to reach the third Medicine Valley and then flew to the inner sect city. Nine-Fingered Divine Lord had long known of the third Medicine Valley but had not expected it to belong to Guin as well. It wasn't until noon that Guin returned alone to the third Medicine Valley, while Nine-Fingered Divine Lord and Chu Jingfeng prepared to stay in the inner sect city. Though the true intentions of Nine-Fingered Divine Lord remained unclear, the addition of a wandering immortal was a good thing for the Supreme Sect. If Nine-Fingered Divine Lord caused trouble, Guin could always intervene. Is the fortune of the Supreme Sect rising? Guin sat in his chair, silently pondering. First, Xian Tianyi summoned Yu Yingying of the Star Sea congregations, then Xiao Dai of the Seven Stars Spirit Realm came to surrender, and now a mysterious wandering immortal had arrived. This fortune made Guin marvel. He didn't overthink it and began to practice alchemy. In the dead of night, Guin arrived at Heavenly Phoenix Mountain. He first visited his own grotto heaven and then made his way along the tunnel to Nianchu Cave. The two cat demons had grown up. Though they had not yet shapeshifted, they now appeared as large as leopards, lying prone on the ground, seemingly napping but actually absorbing nature's spiritual energy. Tian Yaoer heard Guin's footsteps and immediately stepped out of the house, appearing before Guin as if teleporting. She was about to throw herself into his arms when he pressed her forehead with his finger, stopping her from moving forward. You are a bit slow, not fast enough. Guin was referring to Tian Yaoer's limitless freedom step. Tian Yaoer pouted and asked, Master, did you go to your grotto heaven first? Yes, Guin responded, then walked past her. The medicinal herbs in the grotto heaven were all at least 7th rank, taking much longer to mature compared to low-rank medical herbs, so he couldn't harvest them yet. However, once he could harvest them, he would surely gain a large amount of lifespan at once. Even without relying on the grotto heaven, Guin could now accrue nearly 300,000 years of lifespan each year. Tian Yaoer caught up and curiously asked, Master, when will we move in there? The grotto heaven was much more spacious, while Nianchu Cave felt too stifling. You can go in any time you want, just don't forget about Nianchu Cave, Guin replied. A look of disappointment flashed in Tian Yaoer's eyes. She had hoped to live with Guin, thinking he was planning to move in because of the many high-rank medical herbs planted there. She didn't press the matter but instead started talking about recent events. The previous night, a great demon had fought in Heavenly Phoenix Mountain, causing a huge commotion that made her very nervous, fearing a demon might break into Nianchu Cave. Their conversation continued leisurely. Soon, Tianqing and Tianbai were awakened by their chatter. Seeing Guin, the two cat demons grew delighted and immediately rushed over. Master! Master, you finally came. The two cat demons' voices sounded sweet, like two young girls coyly addressing Guin. Guin almost got goosebumps. He felt that Tian Yaoer had spoiled these two cat demons. They sat down at the stone table, and Tian Yaoer brought out some fine wine, saying, Master, do you have more of Journey to the West? I just read the part where Sun Wukong fights the White Bone Demon. Monk Tang is really frustrating. Guin took out the latest scroll from his storage bag and placed it on the table. He joked, Why, didn't you side with the demons? Sun Wukong is also a demon. I support him. Monk Tang may save demons, but he's so oblivious. Master, do humans have a legend about seeking scriptures? Tian Yaoer asked indignantly. No, it's just a story I made up. Really? It feels so real. When you become a great demon, you can also rule Heavenly Phoenix Mountain. Hee, that's what I thought too. When the time comes, I'll call myself the beautiful Phoenix King and form the 7 great saints. Talking about such things excited Tianyao. She chattered on enthusiastically. Guan found it amusing. Indeed, boasting needed no teaching. It came naturally with imagination. As they chatted, Guan sensed a vast aura from a distance. His divine sense instinctively followed, but the aura quickly vanished. Guan speculated it might have come from a minor heaven and earth realm. Thinking of such vastness, he first considered the 7 stars spirit realm. Only the minor heaven and earth realm of the 7 stars spirit realm could be so well hidden. Of course, Guan's divine sense could locate the minor heaven and earth realm of the 7 stars spirit realm, but the restrictions there were highly advanced. Sneaking in unnoticed was beyond his capability. If he forced his way in, it would certainly alert the cultivators of the 7 stars spirit realm. Are they up to something again? Guan pondered as he dealt with Tianyao. With the passage of summer into autumn, the weather remained hot. At noon, Guan rode the blood prison great saint to the outer gate city. There, he overheard cultivators talking about a recent event. An immortal path supreme treasure. Did you hear? There are signs of an immortal path supreme treasure in the demon land. What's an immortal path supreme treasure? I don't know either. I heard it's an immortal's magic artifact. Possessing it grants the power of an immortal. I heard about it too, but no one knows the exact location yet. Is this immortal path supreme treasure more powerful than the heaven-cutting axe? Guan listened silently, but the blood prison great saint, unable to contain his curiosity, asked, Master, is there really such an immortal path supreme treasure? Guan did not answer but looked ahead. Yu Yingying approached, hands behind her back, her face beaming with a smile. It's true. Want to know more? She asked. The blood prison great saint nodded, eagerly looking at her. However, Yu Yingying rolled her eyes at him and then looked at Guan. Guan smiled and said, Of course, I'm also interested. Come to my residence, I have something to discuss with you, Yu Yingying said, turning to leave. Guan patted the great saint, signaling him to follow. After 30 minutes, they were sitting in a courtyard. Yu Yingying and Guan sat across from each other at a stone table. She began to introduce the immortal path supreme treasures. The world has magic artifacts, dharma treasures, and immortal treasures. Immortal treasures are magic artifacts crafted at the immortal path realm, only wielded by an immortal's mana. But an immortal path supreme treasure is crafted by the mightiest of the immortal path, each imbued with an immortal spirit. These supreme treasures not only contain immense power but also remain unaffected by the passage of time. The beings who crafted them either left the mortal world or have passed away, but the treasures endure. The Star Sea congregations possess one such supreme treasure, the Star Sea Primordial Unity Banner, which is their church treasure. The Holy Land, the 7 stars spirit realm, also has an immortal path supreme treasure, the 7 stars mirror, which is likewise their church treasure. Recently, it is said that the 7 stars spirit realm discovered another fake immortal treasure, and the entire ocean is competing for it. I hadn't expected the news to spread so widely that even the low-level cultivators of the Supreme Sect would hear of it. Guan, curious, asked, What is a fake immortal treasure? Yu Yingying explained, It is a damaged immortal path supreme treasure where the immortal spirit is dormant. Though still possessing great power, it pales in comparison to a complete supreme treasure. Guan suddenly suspected that Nine-Finger Divine Lord had come to the Supreme Sect for this fake immortal treasure. Normally not engaged in combat, Guan wasn't particularly interested in immortal path supreme treasures. He placed more trust in his own mana. Yu Yingying continued to describe other immortal path supreme treasures, each a legendary artifact, claiming that those who obtained them could achieve the immortal path, boasting extravagantly. The blood prison great saint lay nearby, listening intently with a look of longing in his eyes. As Guan listened, he spread his divine sense over the continent, noticing that from all directions, cultivators and demons were arriving from overseas, including several beings at the immortal path realm. He identified 3 wandering immortals and over a dozen nirvana realm beings making their way here. Within the continent, He detected the presence of more than 20 wandering immortals, spread out in different areas, all seeking immortal path supreme treasures. Some were even near the minor heaven and earth realm of the Seven Stars spirit realm, plotting how to infiltrate. Notably, Guan saw that in Hao, Liya, and Zhang Buku were also roaming the demon clan's territory. And Hao was fighting a great demon of the divinity transformation realm alone. After talking about immortal path supreme treasures, let's discuss Journey to the West, shall we? Yu Yingying suddenly said, her eyes glowing as she looked at Guan. She usually loved reading all kinds of miscellaneous books, especially stories, which was why she got along well with Xian Tianyi. Ever since Xian Tianyi gave her investiture of the gods, she had been fascinated by Pan and, what do you want to discuss? Guan asked. Yu Yingying immediately asked a series of questions, such as whether investiture of the gods and Journey to the West were connected, how many years apart they were, and on which continent the stories took place. She was even curious about how Guan came up with these two remarkable books. Guan answered her questions one by one. As for the source of his inspiration, he mentioned meeting two Taoists before, one named Su Zhonglin, who told him the story of investiture of the gods, and another named Wu Chenjian, who told him the story of Journey to the West. Yu Yingying did not doubt him and became even more curious about these two Taoists. She believed that with Gu An's cultivation level, he did not seem to possess such extensive knowledge but simply had literary talent. The Blood Prison Great Saint listened curiously. He knew Guan wrote books but did not know the details. Only when Yu Yingying mentioned the Bull Demon King did he become interested. Guan had given him the name of the Bull Demon King. Had his master written a book for him? Who was Sun Wukong? Could it be the monkey in Tianya Valley? Thinking of those 3 monkeys, the Blood Prison Great Saint felt angry. Those 3 always stealthily pulled his fur, and he couldn't catch them. 2 hours passed like this. Yu Yingying brought tea and snacks, indicating she had no intention of letting Guan leave. In the few years since arriving at the Supreme Sect, she hadn't sought out Guan because she was busy reading. She had read through all the books in the book collection hall, a determination that impressed even Guan. At that moment, a high-pitched dragon's roar echoed from the sky. Yu Yingying's face changed, and she murmured, "Dragon-slaying spear Qi Jiuxiao." Chapter 215, 700,000 years lifespan limit. Dragon-slaying spear Qi Jiuxiao? Dragon-slaying? How arrogant! The Blood Prison Great Saint heard Yu Yingying's words and couldn't help but show a curious expression. He looked up to the south and saw a golden glow appearing in the sky, becoming more and more spectacular, as if the sky was changing color. Guan also turned his head to look. In fact, he had already seen the figure of the approaching person. Nirvana Realm 9 layers. The golden light gradually enveloped the sky above the Supreme Sect. More and more people flew up, looking into the distance. Dragon roars echoed continuously, growing louder, indicating that the person was getting closer. Soon, a 1,000-foot-long 5-clawed golden dragon flew from the horizon. Its majestic and imposing figure shook the outer gate city. Guan saw that in the dragon's head was a long spear, entirely golden, with a golden dragon coiled around the shaft, its mouth spitting out the spear blade, exuding dominance. That was a very extraordinary Dharma treasure. Perhaps it was the immortal treasure that Yu Yingying mentioned. This golden dragon was condensed from the immortal treasure and was not a true dragon. Standing on the dragon's head was a man wearing a gold-patterned white robe, a red belt around his waist. His shoulders were broad, his posture upright. His aura couldn't be concealed. His face was handsome, his long hair coiled under a crown, with 2 strands of black hair hanging in front of his ears, fluttering in the wind. Qi Jiuxiao stood high above, looking down at the Supreme Sect, a smirk on his lips, and his gaze arrogant. Gu N's gaze locked onto him, throwing a life-span detection at him. Qi Jiuxiao, Nirvana Realm 9 Layers 998/25,000/70000, 700,000 years of ultimate lifespan. Very exaggerated. This guy wasn't even 1,000 years old yet, and was already in the Nirvana Realm 9 Layers? No wonder he was so proud. Who is this person? The blood prison great saint couldn't help but ask. He could feel that the other party was definitely above the Mahayana realm. Yu Yingying looked up at the sky and said softly, "He is a disciple of the Star Sea congregations with top-notch talent." At the age of 500, he stepped into the realm of immortal path. The golden dragon he rides is transformed from the dragon-slaying spear, which is an immortal treasure refined by an ancient immortal. Although it is not as great as the supreme treasure of the immortal path, with this spear, even a loose immortal would find it difficult to kill him. Qi Jiuxiao, standing high above, looked down and saw Yu Yingying through the sky. He slightly raised an eyebrow and suddenly leaped down. The city protection array of the outer gate city was instantly disturbed, but it was broken as soon as it appeared, with no resistance whatsoever. He fell like swift thunder, landing in the courtyard of Yu Yingying's residence, startling the blood prison great saint to his feet, as did Guan. Qi Jiuxiao ignored him and Guan, his eyes fixed on Yu Yingying, and he laughed. "Little girl, what are you doing here?" "Little girl? How did your master teach you to speak?" "Haha, so this is the supreme sect that Xian Tianyi comes from? Really weak. I heard he wants to deal with the 7 stars spirit realm. Your master is running around making connections, but the higher-ups are unmoved." Qi Jiuxiao laughed softly. Seeing Yu Yingying frown, he continued, "How about I go and probe the depths of the 7 stars spirit realm for you?" Yu Yingying looked at him and snorted, "With your cultivation level, don't die at the 7 stars spirit realm." "Ha! Then watch me seize the supreme treasure of the immortal path." With that, Qi Jiuxiao leaped into the air, the golden dragon in the sky transforming into a streak of golden light, flying across the sky and disappearing without a trace. From beginning to end, Qi Jiuxiao didn't even glance at Guan. Yu Yingying snorted coldly, "That guy is truly arrogant. Sooner or later he will suffer a big loss." Guan sat down again and curiously asked, "What is your relationship?" "Just fellow disciples, we're not on the same path." Yu Yingying shook her head, obviously not wanting to say much about herself. A Foundation Establishment Realm 8th floor saying she's not on the same path as a Nirvana Realm 9 layers? Though correct, it felt a bit awkward. Guan felt more and more that Yu Yingying was not simple. No wonder Xian Tianyi invited her to the Supreme Sect. He looked at the cause and effect around Yu Yingying, probing her past 20 years. However, he only saw various scenes of Yu Yingying throwing tantrums and being domineering, with Xian Tianyi pleasing her. Letting him stir things up is good. Your Supreme Sect is dissatisfied with the 7 stars spirit realm anyway. Yu Yingying continued. Guan remained silent, not responding. Yu Yingying could see that he didn't want to cause trouble. Xian Tianyi had mentioned this before. "Let's continue talking about Journey to the West." Yu Yingying laughed. At this moment, the entire Supreme Sect was in an uproar, all disciples discussing Qi Jiuxiao. In a mansion in the main city of the sect, Qiao Dai stood on the eaves, frowning. Dragon-slaying spear, why is he here? Could it be that the 7 stars spirit realm really has the supreme treasure of the immortal path? But why bring the supreme treasure to this continent? Qiao Dai was filled with confusion. He felt it was not a coincidence. The 7 stars spirit realm must have a plan. Qi Jiuxiao's appearance marked the beginning of the competition for the supreme treasure of the immortal path. In the days that followed, powerful presences occasionally swept past the Supreme Sect, and divine senses occasionally scanned the Supreme Sect. This made the atmosphere within the Supreme Sect tense, fearing they would suffer in the crossfire. 5 days later, LV Baitin came to find Guan. The two hid in a room to talk. After setting up a restriction, LV Baitin couldn't help but sigh. Lately, many great cultivators from overseas are arriving. The peace of this continent is about to be broken. He felt very aggrieved. Those overseas great cultivators freely probed the Supreme Sect without greeting, completely ignoring them. The most crucial part was that the Supreme Sect had to endure it. Not only the Supreme Sect, but the 3 dynasties and all sects felt this way. After surviving the demon calamity, all sects were eager to grow stronger. But in just a few years, so many beings at the Immortal Path realm appeared, making them feel like weeds. Before the demon calamity, I lived for hundreds of years without seeing a Mahayana realm cultivator, let alone those at the Immortal Path realm. Now, how come there are more and more? LV Batian said troubledly. Guwen comforted him. It's okay, for now, no one is endangering the Supreme Sect. Their target should be that so-called Supreme Treasure of the Immortal Path. LV Batian nodded. I just wanted to vent to you. Now the Hall of Elders is on high alert, fearing another calamity may break out. Boom, a deafening roar came from afar, startling LV Batian, cutting off his words. Gu Innis' divine sense swept out, seeing Qi Jiuxiao fighting a Nirvana realm great cultivator far beyond Heavenly Phoenix Mountain. That person should be from the seven-star spirit realm. His aura did not come from overseas but seemed to have suddenly appeared. Qi Jiuxiao was indeed strong, completely suppressing the opponent. Gu sensed a loose immortal aura approaching the battlefield, also emerging from the minor heaven and earth of the seven-star spirit realm. I need to go back. LV Batian stood up and then disappeared from the room. Gu also stood up, walked downstairs, and saw disciples gathering. The previous noise had scared them, and they couldn't help but be afraid. Lu Lingjun also walked out from inside. She and the Blood Prison Great Saint looked in the same direction. After a while, Lu Lingjun withdrew her gaze and looked at the Blood Prison Great Saint. Why did it seem like the Blood Prison Great Saint was also looking in her direction? The Blood Prison Great Saint felt her gaze and couldn't help but glare at her. Stupid bull. Lu Lingjun shook her head and smiled, then walked towards Guwen. The Blood Prison Great Saint couldn't help but curse. You're the stupid one. Lu Lingjun glanced at him, a terrifying murderous intent locking onto him, making his bull body stiffen. Guwen also gave the Blood Prison Great Saint a look, forcing him to lower his head. The Blood Prison Great Saint felt extremely aggrieved. A dignified Mahayana realm cultivator, humiliated by a mystic heart realm cultivator, unable to retort. He now really hated Lu Lingjun. Thousands of years later, I definitely won't join your Ascension sect, and I'll even steal your people. Lu Lingjun smiled with satisfaction, then came to Guwen. Why do you argue with him? Guwen pretended to complain. Upset? I apologize to you. How would I know he has such a bad temper? Usually, she was in seclusion, unaware of what the Blood Prison Great Saint had gone through. Never mind, treat him better in the future. After all, he's my mount. Guwen shook his head, making the Blood Prison Great Saint feel very touched. Lu Lingjun laughed. This bull is too weak. If you want a mount, I can get you a stronger one. The Blood Prison Great Saint's anger flared up again. Guwen feared he would die of anger, so he pulled Lu Lingjun to an isolated place. Lu Lingjun sought him out of curiosity about recent events. Guwen didn't hide anything and told her about the rumors of the supreme treasure of the Immortal Path. Lu Lingjun became interested and flew north directly. Really reckless. Are all ascenders like this? Guwen felt helpless. His divine sense locked onto Qi Jiuxiao. This guy was already facing a loose immortal. The loose immortal seemed to be the master of the Nirvana realm cultivator, continually warning Qi Jiuxiao. But Qi Jiuxiao was extremely arrogant, soon starting a fight after a few words. One had to admit that the dragon-slaying spear in Qi Jiuxiao's hand was indeed powerful, capable of both offense and defense, preventing the loose immortal from defeating him in a short time. Of course, Guwen could see that the loose immortal was very cautious of Qi Jiuxiao, not dealing a deadly blow. Before long, Qi Jiuxiao was still defeated and had to retreat. The immortal treasure could only protect him from death but couldn't help him kill a loose immortal realm great cultivator. After the battle ended, Guwen retracted his divine sense and turned back to the house. In the middle of the night, and Hao walked through the woods, holding a map. He had obtained it by chance, and it was said to record the cave of an ancient great cultivator. As he walked, he suddenly sensed something, quickly putting away the map, warily looking around, and a long sword appeared in his hand. Footsteps came from the darkness. He looked closely and saw a man approaching. It was Qi Jiuxiao. And Hao did not recognize Qi Jiuxiao but could sense that the other was very strong. Qi Jiuxiao's face was very bad. He looked at Hao and asked, "Hey, what's your name?" Which sect or school are you from? And Hao frowned. My name is Hao from the Supreme Sect. Qi Jiuxiao said, the Supreme Sect? There's a connection. One of my junior sisters is in the Supreme Sect. In light of this connection, give me the 8th rank heavenly material and earthly treasure from your storage bag for my healing, and I won't treat you unfairly. Hearing this, Hao's face changed drastically. How did the other K? Chapter 216, Soaring Dragon 9 Transformations. Divine Exotic City. Qi Jiuxiao noticed Hao's tension, so he raised his hand, took out a scroll, and threw it to Hao. Hao instinctively caught it, then heard Qi Jiuxiao say, "Take a look, this is a divine skill I accidentally obtained." After saying that, Qi Jiuxiao sat down cross-legged and began to cultivate energy to heal his wounds. Hao hesitated for a moment before he delved his divine sense into the scroll. After a while, Hao's face changed dramatically, and the hand holding the scroll trembled. He withdrew his divine sense, then took out an 8th rank heaven and earth treasure from his storage bag, a bright red spirit flower, and presented it to Qi Jiuxiao. Qi Jiuxiao beckoned with his hand, and the 8th rank spirit flower flew into his hand. He stood up, took out a medicine cauldron that was about a zhang tall, tossed the spirit flower into it, and then added numerous medicinal herbs. After lighting the fire, he took out a small bottle and poured water into the cauldron. The small bottle seemed to contain an otherworldly space and never ran dry. When the cauldron was filled with water, Qi Jiuxiao sealed the bottle and put it back into his storage Dharma artifact. He looked at Hao and said, "You can leave now." With that, he leaped into the air and landed inside the medicine cauldron. Hao hesitated for a moment but did not leave. Instead, he sat down under a nearby tree and began to comprehend the divine skill given by Qi Jiuxiao. Soaring Dragon 9 Transformations. Just by looking at the description of the divine skill within the scroll, Hao couldn't help but feel his blood boil. Thus, day after day passed. 7 days later, Qi Jiuxiao leaped out from the medicine cauldron. When he landed on the ground, his wet robes quickly dried, and wisps of white smoke coiled around his body. He shrank the medicine cauldron to a small size, stored it in his hand, and then emptied it, using his mana to clean out the residue. At the same time, he looked into the distance. Through the gaps in the leaves, he saw an azure dragon tumbling in the sky beyond the forest. This kid's comprehension is extraordinary. Qi Jiuxiao was secretly astonished. In just a few days, Hao had managed to master the divine skill. Such talent was rare even in the Star Sea congregations. After putting away the medicine cauldron, he disappeared without a trace in the forest. The next second, he appeared in the sky, blocking the azure dragon. The azure dragon, which Hao had transformed into, was 3 zhang long, not very large, but full of imposing presence. Upon seeing Qi Jiuxiao, the azure dragon shook and transformed back into Hao, who excitedly said, "This divine skill is amazing. After transforming, I feel like a true dragon, and my speed has increased significantly." Qi Jiuxiao said proudly, "Of course, I am Qi Jiuxiao of the dragon-slaying spear. How could I deceive you, kid? The value of this divine skill far exceeds the 8th rank heaven and earth treasure. You should thank me." Upon hearing this, Hao immediately bowed and thanked Qi Jiuxiao. Qi Jiuxiao's face was full of smiles, though he felt a bit jealous inside. He had originally thought that even if he passed the Soaring Dragon 9 transformations to Hao wouldn't be able to learn it, making himself appear generous without any loss. Who would have thought? Qi Jiuxiao sized up Hao and said, "Kid, why don't you join the Star Sea congregations? The Supreme Sect is too small for you. With your talent, if you join the Star Sea congregations, you'll reach the Mahayana realm within 500 years. Hao frowned slightly upon hearing this. Reaching the Mahayana realm at 500 years old was impressive, Hao had always thought of his own talent as unparalleled, so he didn't see reaching the Mahayana realm in 500 years as a difficult feat. Even Shen Tianyi was only a few hundred years old. Qi Jiuxiao continued to boast about the greatness of the Star Sea congregations. When he mentioned Shen Tianyi, Hao finally grew interested. He had a very good relationship with Xian Tianyi. However, in Qi Jiuxio's words, Xian Tianyi was just a fellow disciple with decent talent. The reason Xian Tianyi was mentioned was that he also came from the Supreme Sect. Forget it, I'm not going to the Star Sea congregations. I want to stay in the Supreme Sect, and Hao said, shaking his head. Qi Jiuxiao did not try to persuade him further. After all, he wasn't the sect hierarch of the Star Sea congregations, so making a few recruiting gestures was enough. Why did you appear in this area? Qi Jiuxiao asked. And Hao did not conceal anything and said, I was originally training and heard the legend of the Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. I wanted to see it for myself. Qi Jiuxiao laughed and said, how about joining forces? We'll rely on our abilities when the time comes. And Hao hesitantly asked, can my cultivation level really help you? I'm not very familiar with this continent. You can tell me about the events happening here, and I'll guide you in cultivating the Soaring Dragon 9 transformations. How about that? All right, thank you, Senior. And Hao responded excitedly. The reason he did not leave was that he wanted to learn more skills from Qi Jiuxiao. Then, the two of them flew off in one direction. As autumn arrived, the scorching heat between heaven and earth gradually dissipated. The influence of the Immortal Path Supreme Treasure continued to increase, attracting more and more cultivators to head north in search of opportunities. Guwen was not affected and continued to live his plain yet interesting life. Occasionally, he would visit the Outer Gate City to chat with his friends about the various events stirred up by the Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. One day, Yi Lan came to find Guwen and also spoke about the immortal cultivation world. A faction of the Tianwei dynasty was flattened by overseas great cultivators, causing panic in the immortal cultivation world. Fortunately, our supreme sect is protected by Sword Venerable Fudao. Otherwise, those great cultivators from overseas wouldn't dare to act recklessly, Yi Lan said with concern. The battle took place at night, and Guwen had sensed it, but he didn't intervene. He had no relationship with Tianwei, so naturally, he was too lazy to take action. Such calamities were not uncommon in the immortal cultivation world. The overseas great cultivators who intervened were only at the Mahayana realm, but they were enough to crush a great sect with 1 million disciples. Guwen reminded her, then you should go out less and stay in the sect to cultivate. Yi Lan nodded and said, I'm now stationed at the law enforcement hall, doing idle tasks all day, and spending most of my time taking elixirs and absorbing energy. She was already 101 years old, and her maximum lifespan was only 130 years. Time was running out. Now, besides growing flowers and plants, Guwen supervised her cultivation. Unlike Xiaochuan, Yi Lan was quite ambitious, so Guwen was willing to help her. As they chatted, the topic shifted to Zhenqin. A few days ago, Zhenqin followed the elders and inheriting disciples to the demon clan's territory. It was said that the Supreme Sect had discovered a secret realm, a rare opportunity. That girl is bound to soar to great heights. She might even become a great cultivator of the Supreme Sect in the future. Imagine, she used to come to the inner sect to find me, acting like a little girl, reckless in her actions and careless in her words. Yi Lan began reminiscing about decades ago. Guwen listened attentively, and when she finished, he teased, What, are you jealous of her? Why don't I cultivate the defying fate divine skill and pass my cultivation level to you before I die? Yi Lan gave him a sidelong glance and said, I wouldn't want that. What's the point of living without you? As they talked, the teacups on the table began to tremble, and ripples appeared in the tea. Yi Lan noticed this and frowned. Soon, even the ground began to shake, alarming all the cultivators in the city. Gu and his gaze turned towards the depths of the continent to the desolate plains where a giant city was rising from the ground, occupying a 1,000-mile radius. Dust filled the sky, and the momentum was magnificent. Guwen could sense the vast power contained within the city. It was a Dharma treasure, the strongest he had ever seen. He immediately thought of a name. Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. The restrictions contained in this treasure were not only advanced but also very complex. Guwen even sensed the aura of karmic rules. A city that occupied a 1,000-mile radius was colossal, with walls 100 zhang tall, the city filled with buildings, palaces, and towering spires. Despite its ancient and dilapidated appearance, the city had crossed the long river of time. With the arrival of this city, the great cultivators scattered across the continent all rushed towards it, including Qi Jiuxiao and Hao. Even Li Ya and Zhang Buku joined the excitement. "I'm going out to take a look." Yi Lan said this and then leaped into the air, stepping on her flying sword as she left the residence. Guwen picked up his teacup and continued drinking tea, watching the excitement. He saw numerous cultivators from the Seven Stars spirit realm enter the city, and once they did, their figures disappeared and their auras weakened. Guwen, at the 9th level of the Heaven and Earth Flying Immortal Realm, could barely catch their auras. Even so, it was difficult for cultivators of lower realms. No matter how many cultivators flew into the city, it remained silent. No one was seen, and no signs of life could be detected. The divine exotic city is open. All beings under the heavens can enter the city and find their immortal fate. A booming and ancient voice resounded throughout the heavens and earth, reaching every corner of the continent. "Wandering immortal." Guwen raised an eyebrow. The 6 Stars cave only had one wandering immortal. Now, with the appearance of a second, had the death of the divine soul true lord been discovered? After a while, Yi Lan flew back. The disturbance seems to be coming from afar. "This divine exotic city sounds extraordinary. I really want to see it," Yi Lan said wistfully as she sat opposite Guwen. Guwen shook his head and said, "Such immortal fate is not something cultivators like us can reach." "I know. Don't worry. I won't go looking for death. With my cultivation level, I might die before even seeing the divine exotic city," Yi Lan said with a smile, shaking her head. Guwen didn't comfort her. It was indeed the truth. About an hour later, Guwen left under Yi Lan's urging. In the days that followed, various legends about the divine exotic city circulated within the supreme sect. Shenzhen especially visited Guwen, bringing many tales of the divine exotic city. "I heard from a senior that the divine exotic city is an ancient immortal city, hidden and elusive. Each appearance can change the world. Our predecessors in the Daotian sect once excavated an ancient site and found an inscription mentioning the divine exotic city. It is a very ancient legend," Shenzhen said excitedly. Guwen smiled and asked, "What, do you want to join the excitement?" He observed the divine exotic city every day, witnessing over 10,000 beings enter the city, but none had come out. Shenzhen nodded and said, "Yes, I'm planning to take a look. I won't enter the city, just watch the excitement from outside and draw the divine exotic city. Are you coming?" There will be the vice sect leader and the supreme elders leading the way. Guwen shook his head and said, "I'm not going. If there's an incident, dying there would be too worthless." "Nonsense. Are you cursing me?" Shenzhen glared at him. No matter how much she persuaded, Guwen wouldn't go, so she had no choice but to give up. After Shenzhen left, Guwen went downstairs to start picking medicinal herbs. At the same time, his divine sense saw Li Ya and Zhang Buku entering the divine exotic city. Another person was on the way to the divine exotic city. It was Ji Xiaoyu. Chapter 217. Have you read Journey to the West? The noise caused by the appearance of divine exotic city in a short period of time matched the past catastrophe of demons, with various legends about divine exotic city emerging and widely circulating in the immortal cultivation world and among the common people. Divine exotic city houses immortals. Divine exotic city has the elixir of immortality. Divine exotic city has a passage to an exotic world. And so on. These countless peculiar tales made Guwen feel astonished. In the blink of an eye, more than half a year had passed. This year's spring festival was quieter than in previous years because many disciples of the Supreme Sect went out to seek opportunities. Fortunately, the Third Medicine Valley and Mystic Valley were not affected. Divine exotic city still stood there, continuously attracting cultivators from all over the world to seek treasures. Even the Nine-Finger Divine Lord, who was temporarily residing in the Supreme Sect, went there, taking Chu Jingfeng with him. Up to now, It was only Herd who had gone to Divine Exotic City. No one had been heard to bring back any harvest from inside the city. In late spring, Guan rode the Blood Prison Great Saint to Tianya Valley. Li Xiandao was actually there as well. He had not returned to Tianya Valley for many years. Guan came to him and saluted, thanking him for the golden core he had given. It seems the Supreme Sect treats you well. Someone helped you form a core. I originally wanted to send someone to help you. Li Xiandao stroked his beard and smiled. In response, Guan could only express his gratitude without mentioning much about the Supreme Sect. After not seeing him for many years, Li Xuando's cultivation had reached the second level of the Unification Realm. He was only 314 years old, which was quite extraordinary. Guan suspected that he could reach the Mahayana realm before the age of 500. Considering only this continent, it was estimated that only in Hao and Xian Tiany's talents could compare with his, and his maximum lifespan was not less, exceeding 6,000 years. Achieving nirvana in this life would be no problem. Li Xiandao called over Ji Ruolai, Luo Hun, and LV Xian, and they all sat down to chat. He mentioned Divine Exotic City and planned to take people to explore it. According to the information I received, Divine Exotic City is an immortal path supreme treasure, containing numerous minor heavens and earths with countless opportunities. Who among you wants to go? Li Xiandao asked. All three expressed their interest, and Li Xiandao then looked at Guan. Guan did not expect Li Xiandao to invite him and quickly shook his head and said, "I'll pass. Given my cultivation, I would only be a burden to you, and I am not interested in the so-called immortal opportunities. I am self-aware enough to know that such immortal opportunities are not something I can covet." Li Xiandao laughed and said, "I am also at the core formation realm. Do you mean I shouldn't go either?" Pretending to be at core formation realm with the unification realm, do you still have the nerve? Guan helplessly said, "There is a difference even among those at the core formation realm. My strength is far inferior to yours." Li Xiandao raised his hand and pointed at him, did not insist, and just smiled. LV Xian wanted to say that both of them should stop pretending, but he held back because he could not afford to offend either of them. They continued talking about Divine Exotic City, and Ji Ruolai began sharing the intelligence he had gathered about it, while Guan silently listened. It was said that even the Seven Stars Spirit Realm could not subdue Divine Exotic City. The immortal spirit of Divine Exotic City was hidden in the city and hard to find, so they had no choice but to release the city and let cultivators from all over the world come to find the immortal opportunities, thus forcing out the immortal spirit. Ji Ruolai received news from his family, saying that more overseas cultivators were on their way, which would inevitably affect the local immortal cultivation world. As the Holy Land, the Seven Stars Spirit Realm doesn't consider us at all, causing trouble for the immortal cultivation world of the three dynasties. LV Xian couldn't help but curse. Luo Hun nodded. He also disapproved of the Seven Stars Spirit Realm. During the great catastrophe of demons, the Seven Stars Spirit Realm did not intervene. After Sword Venerable Fudao exterminated the demon ancestor, they descended from the mountain to save the world and gain a good reputation. Now, how many years have passed since the great catastrophe of demons ended, and they provoked so many powerful overseas cultivators? Can such a force really be considered a holy land? Li Xiandao did not comment on the Seven Stars Spirit Realm, and Ji Ruolai was even more silent. Guan also wondered what the Seven Stars Spirit Realm intended to do. This was not just targeting the immortal cultivation world of the three dynasties. If all the overseas cultivators who came died, the impact would be massive. An hour later, Li Xiandao took Ji Ruolai, Luo Hun, and LV Xian and set off. Meanwhile, Tianya Valley became lively. Three monkey demons found Guan and chattered non-stop, giving off the vibe of being the kings in a mountain without a tiger. The Blood Prison Great Saint also became talkative, quarreling fiercely with Sun San. After Guan finished picking medicinal herbs, he rode the Blood Prison Great Saint away leisurely, and Tianya Valley returned to silence. At dusk, Divine Exotic City stood tall on the wasteland, magnificent and grand. Quite a few cultivators and demons gathered in front of the 4 city gates, and some cultivators and demons directly flew into the city. The air above the city walls rippled, and then the entrance disappeared without a trace. Two figures flew from the horizon. It was Jiang Qiong and the ghost mother of ephemera. As they looked from a distance, their eyes showed astonishment. Before coming, they had heard many legends about divine exotic city, but seeing it in person now, they felt the shock. Not only was it a visual impact, but an indescribable ancient aura also surged toward them. Divine exotic city, it is said that obtaining it can summon divine soul demons to sweep across the heavens and earth. I never thought I would witness this legendary immortal path's supreme treasure in my lifetime, the ghost mother of ephemera marveled. Jiang Qiong frowned and said, "Why can't I see anyone coming out?" The ghost mother of ephemera replied, "There are countless minor heavens and earths inside divine exotic city. Without several years, it's very difficult to come out." Jiang Qiong fell silent, her beautiful eyes fixed on divine exotic city. At that moment, a loud bell suddenly roared, making everyone's divine soul tremble. Jiang Qiong and the ghost mother of ephemera instinctively turned their heads and saw a golden light flying from the horizon at high speed across the wasteland and entering divine exotic city, with no one seeing its true form. Jiang Qiong asked in a low voice, "What realm is that passerby?" The ghost mother of ephemera remained silent, unable to answer. Meanwhile, Guan, staying in the third Medicine Valley, also stared at divine exotic city. Even the wandering immortals have come. Will heaven and earth flying immortals appear next? Guan stood by a wooden railing, looking at the horizon and silently thought. He originally wasn't interested in divine exotic city, but as more and more old acquaintances entered the city, he had to pay more attention. If something happened to divine exotic city, half of the people he cared about would die. Just thinking about it felt distressing. After watching for a while, he moved to check each garden area. Inside a broken and desolate city, and Hao and Qi Jiuxiao sat cross-legged in front of a collapsed wall, their faces pale and obviously injured. Roar. A thunderous roar echoed through the heavens and earth, causing the wall behind them to tremble slightly. And Hao opened his eyes and frowned, asking in a low voice, "Senior, is there really an immortal opportunity here? Should we try another place?" They were in a minor heaven and earth inside divine exotic city. After being here for several months, they had not found many treasures but often encountered demon beasts of the immortal path realm, facing life-threatening dangers. Even the powerful Qi Jiuxiao was injured. Qi Jiuxiao, with his eyes closed, said, "There are many powerful demon beasts here, indicating that this place must hide a supreme treasure. The desolation is only on the surface. If we can find the immortal spirit of divine exotic city, you and I will soar to the skies and become one of the dominions of heaven and earth." And Hao smiled bitterly. "Even if we find the immortal spirit, can we protect divine exotic city with our cultivation?" He admitted that Qi Jiuxiao was strong, but ever since they paired up, he often saw Qi Jiuxiao in difficult situations. Although Qi Jiuxiao claimed those opponents were in the loose immortal realm, it at least proved that within divine exotic city he hadn't reached the top tier. How could he compete for the immortal spirit with such strength? The immortal spirit will choose its master. Once chosen, it can borrow the power of divine exotic city. Even you could possess the power of the immortal path realm. With the protection of divine exotic city's power, you and I will rise eventually, Qi Jiuxiao said nonchalantly. Upon hearing this, and Hao's eyes lit up. He was about to speak when suddenly, the city shook more violently. Qi Jiuxiao instantly appeared before him, grabbing him before vanishing from the spot. Rumble, streets collapsed, and dust rolled up, wanting to envelop the skies. Qi Jiuxiao and Hao reappeared in the air. Looking closely, the world was submerged in rolling dust waves, and the dilapidated city below seemed in danger of being swallowed at any moment. "Qi Jiuxiao, long time no see." An eerie voice rang out. Upon hearing this, Qi Jiuxiao's brows furrowed, and he said in a deep voice, "Qin Xuanin, you indeed came." As the words fell, the dust waves ahead suddenly parted, and figures emerged from it. Leading the group was a man in blue robes, graceful and proud. "Do you dare to come alone to our 6 Stars Caves territory? Do you seek death? Qin Xuanin stared at Qi Jiuxiao, a cold smile on his face. Qi Jiuxiao gripped In Hao's shoulder with his right hand, and in his left hand he condensed the dragon-slaying spear. He pointed the spear at Qin Xuanin and sneered, "What? Do you think you can defeat me with a few helpers? Have you forgotten the cowardly look when you knelt before me 100 years ago?" Upon hearing this, Qin Zunyan's eyes turned cold. With a roar, the dust waves behind them dispersed, revealing a terrifying giant demon. It was an elephant demon with a head as huge as a mountain, black skin, blood-red eyes, and scars covering its trunk. Its two tusks were like mountain ridges dispersing the dust waves below. Meanwhile, in another minor heaven and earth within Divine Exotic City, under the clear sky, Zhang Buku and Li Ye walked through a vast monastery. Along the way, there were numerous Buddha statues. Some stood on demon beasts, looking heroic, while others sat on lotus seats, appearing kind and merciful. "Brother Li, have you read Journey to the West?" Zhang Buku suddenly asked. Li Ye, walking in front, hummed, "When do I have time to read leisure books?" His gaze swept forward, his brows furrowed. Since coming here, he had felt uneasy, as if someone hidden was watching them, making him very uncomfortable. Let me tell you, Journey to the West involves the Buddhism sect, and the Buddha is very powerful. Even the great sage equaling heaven, Sun Wukong, couldn't escape the five-finger mountain of the Buddha. Zhang Buku began introducing Journey to the West. He didn't actually want to talk about Journey to the West. His senses were sharper than Li Ya's, and since stepping into this monastery, he felt danger. Strangely, they had walked around several times and couldn't find an exit. The two had a tacit understanding. Neither pointed out this fact and continued to stroll, their minds on high alert. Tap, tap, tap. A stone suddenly fell from the courtyard wall, startling Zhang Buku, who turned to see the stone rolling on the path behind, with no figures of people or demons on the walls around. He released his divine sense, but also failed to detect anything unusual. He turned back, about to say something, and in the next moment, his eyes widened. The space in front of him was empty. Li Ye had vanished. Chapter 218. My master is definitely more powerful than yours. After Li Ye disappeared, Zhang Buku immediately panicked. He flew into the air, and from above, the vast monastery stretched out endlessly. The interconnected courtyard seemed endless, dizzying to behold. He scanned the area but could not find any trace of Li Ye. It wasn't just Li Ye. He couldn't see a single living creature. Thoroughly alarmed, he began to fly around, searching for Li Ye. "Brother Li," he called out loudly, but unfortunately, there was no response. The eeriness and horror intensified, making him feel that danger was approaching. No matter where he flew, he saw no human figures or traces. Gradually, he felt that the courtyards he passed by became increasingly repetitive, causing his consciousness to blur. He did not know how long had passed before he gradually descended into a courtyard. The world spun. His eyelids grew heavy. This feeling made Zhang Buku extremely uncomfortable. He half knelt on the ground, supporting himself with his hands, feeling on the verge of fainting. "Damn it! I can't fall here." Zhang Buku struggled to maintain his last shred of rationality. He vaguely heard footsteps approaching from nearby. He turned his head with difficulty and saw a blurred, overlapping figure approaching. It seemed to be an old monk in a cassock. The old monk crouched down in front of him. Before Zhang Buku could see the monk's face, he saw the monk's hands, bony and gaunt, like a pair of ghostly claws, with very long nails. These hands alarmed Zhang Buku and instinctively filled him with fear. A faint chirping sound came from afar, making him feel dazed as if he had heard this sound somewhere before. The old monk beside him stood up and turned to look, his body trembling, seemingly chastising something. Suddenly, the old monk's figure vanished into thin air, and he felt something land on his shoulder. His consciousness quickly cleared, and the world in his eyes returned to normal, no longer shaking. Once he was fully awake, he quickly stood up and turned his head to see a sparrow perched on his shoulder. "It's you!" Zhang Buku exclaimed with joy. It was this sparrow that had led him to the cave back then, where he obtained the demon core and learned the axe technique. He would never forget this sparrow. He instinctively wanted to grab the sparrow, but it suddenly flew away, landing on the courtyard wall, chirping non-stop. Zhang Buku couldn't understand it, but seeing the sparrow tilting its head, he immediately understood and followed the sparrow. The sparrow flapped its wings and flew away, and Zhang Buku hurriedly chased after it. After a while, the sparrow landed on a stone statue along the courtyard path. As Zhang Buku approached, he was astonished to find that the face of the statue was Li Ya's face. The statue's body was a Buddha statue, wearing a cassock with Li Ya's face on it, making Zhang Buku feel very uneasy. He began to call out to Li Ya, but unfortunately, received no response. Guan, in the form of a sparrow, looked at Zhang Buku and sighed inwardly. This kid's physique and cultivation were good, but his divine sense was lacking and needed more practice. Guan flapped his wings, continuously pecking at Li Ya's statue, guiding Zhang Buku. Zhang Buku took the hint and pushed the statue, but nothing happened. Guan landed on the statue's head, using his beak to peck at the statue's face, then looked up at Zhang Buku. "I understand. Move aside." Zhang Buku stepped aside and said in a deep voice. Guan immediately flew away. Zhang Buku swung his fist and smashed the statue's head with a punch. Rumbling, the ground shook violently, spatial ripples appeared in the sky above the monastery, revealing various colors. Soon after, blood-red lights appeared, quickly replacing the clear sky. In less than 3 breaths' time, the monastery was under a night of blood, terrifying and horrifying. Zhang Buku stared ahead and found that all the stone statues had turned into white bones, hideous and terrifying. He leaped into the air. From above, the once boundless monastery now covered a mere 100 zhang area. In front of one temple, Liya was tied to an old tree, a ghostly claw covering his mouth and a ghostly hand pressing on his chest, preventing him from breaking free. These 2 ghostly hands' arms extended behind the tree, making one wonder how terrifying their owner was. "Brother Li!" Zhang Buku roared in anger, leaping with a stone axe in hand. Just as he flew into the courtyard, the temple doors suddenly opened. "I didn't expect you to see through my formation. Remarkable, young human." A hoarse voice came from the darkness behind the door. Then, an old monk in a cassock walked out. His figure was gaunt, his skin dark and covered in corpse spots, and his pupils had lost all color, pale to the extreme. Zhang Buku said nothing and swung his axe, cutting through the mountain. With one swing, the sky and earth trembled. The old monk vanished from his spot, and the temple was split in 2, with the connecting walls shattered, the cut extending outside the monastery. Guan, in the form of a sparrow, landed on a distant eaves, watching the battle unfold. Zhang Buku was no match for the old monk, but Guan could assist with his divine sense. The battle erupted in full scale. The monastery soon turned into a flat field, more and more evil ghosts emerging from the ground and rushing toward Zhang Buku. Zhang Buku was deeply surrounded, fighting more and more valiantly. "Oh, show yourself!" The old monk suddenly shouted in anger. Whenever he was about to kill Zhang Buku, a powerful divine sense would strike him, throwing his divine soul into chaos and making him lose focus. No one answered him, and Zhang Buku was killing with red eyes. Guan multitasked, using divine sense to help Zhang Buku while observing the minor heaven and earth within Divine Exotic City. The powerful restrictions of Divine Exotic City could not stop his limitless freedom step. As long as he locked onto the auras of Zhang Buku and Liya, he could step in instantly. Now he could enter and exit Divine Exotic City freely, utterly unhindered. Entering Divine Exotic City revealed its vastness. The city's minor heaven and earth numbered at least 1,000. Some minor heaven and earth were larger than the entire Taizong dynasty. Combined, the internal space of Divine Exotic City was likely wider than the entire continent. Guan saw Qi Jiuxiao and Hao being pursued, the pursuers likely from the 7-star spirit realm, led by a loose immortal. He also saw the nine-fingered divine lord single-handedly facing endless divine and ghostly armies in a heaven and was constantly using divine skills, domineering and unrivaled. Guwen tried to kill an evil ghost nearby but gained no lifespan from it. He instantly abandoned the idea of venturing through divine exotic city. These evil ghosts seemed to be from a single power, a power even Guwen could not fathom. The being who created divine exotic city must have a realm far beyond the heaven and earth, flying immortal. Time flew by quickly. An hour later, Zhang Buku finally managed to kill the old monk, though it was Guwen's mana that had initially eliminated him, with Zhang Buku's axe energy following closely. Killing the old monk did not grant Guwen any lifespan either. Zhang Buku landed, gasping heavily. He reached the old tree and cut off the ghostly hands, causing Liya to fall, whom he caught. He subconsciously looked back but saw no trace of the sparrow. He couldn't care much about that and focused on attending to Liya. "Brotherly! Brotherly!" Zhang Buku whispered, using his spiritual power to heal Liya's wounds. At the same time, Guwen had already returned to Mystic Valley. To Zhang Buku and Liya, divine exotic city was incredibly far from the supreme sect, but to Guwen, it was just a step away. He approached the pill furnace in his room, preparing for alchemy. Not only Liya and Zhang Buku encountered troubles today, but several other old friends did as well, so Guwen decided to stay in Mystic Valley and wait. Divine exotic city immortal spirit. Guwen seemed to catch something just now. He stood before the pill furnace, pondering while beginning to place herbs into the furnace. In the dark hall passage, Hao and Qi Jiuxiao were walking quickly. Qi Jiuxiao suddenly stopped, leaning against the wall, and whispered, "We can stop now." Hao looked around and asked, "Where is this place?" They had just flown out of a minor heaven and earth and ended up in this hall passage. After walking for a long time, passing numerous intersections, they had lost their way. They couldn't forcibly break through the walls or even penetrate them with their divine sense, making Hao very nervous. Qi Jiuxiao sat down, placing a small cauldron in front of him, then inserted 2 incense sticks. Watching him light the incense, Hao frowned and asked, "What are you doing?" Black blood seeped from Qi Jiuxiao's mouth. He forced a smile and said, "Those scum from 7 Stars Spirit Realm dared to hire 2 loose immortals to deal with me. I indeed couldn't defeat them, but since Qin Xuanin can call for help, so can I." Hao widened his eyes and quickly asked, "Aren't you from overseas? Who can you call?" "Heh, my master is a being surpassing loose immortals. Once I light this incense, he will sense it and come to rescue us quickly," Qi Jiuxiao grinned. "Surpassing loose immortals." Hao was stunned. He sat down and said, "Since you're calling your master, I'll call mine as well." He began calling his master in his mind. Previously, he had managed to call his master through his thoughts. But he was unsure. Last time, he wanted his master to save Xian Tianyi, and his master didn't come right away, though he did act later. He wasn't sure under what circumstances his master would act. Your master? Forget it. What formidable cultivator could the supreme sect have? Qi Jiuxiao couldn't help but laugh. Hao said, "My master is definitely stronger than yours." "Kid, don't disrespect my master." Qi Jiuxiao glared at him. Hao was about to say that Qi Jiuxiao had also disrespected his master. Suddenly, the hall passage began to tremble, and a powerful killing intent attacked from the darkness. Damn it! They caught up so fast. Qi Jiuxiao immediately stood up, grabbed the small cauldron with the incense, and pulled Hao along, flying quickly. Though strong at the 9th layer of Nirvana realm, he couldn't break through the walls or ceiling, so he could only fly close to the ground. "Qi Jiuxiao, you can't escape." Qin Zunyan's voice came from behind, filled with frenzied excitement. At the same time, outside divine exotic city, LV Batian and a group of supreme sect cultivators watched the city gate, discussing their plans after entering the city. Suddenly, a terrifying aura came from afar, startling everyone outside the city to turn and look. They could only see a streak of light breaking through the sky, disappearing into divine exotic city in the blink of an eye, swift as lightning, and couldn't see what was within the light. Chapter 219 Master. Qi Jiuxiao took an hao and fled quickly, passing dozens of intersections. They suddenly flew into a vast palace whose length and width were difficult to estimate. The palace was dimly lit, with rows of stone pillars, most of which had extinguished oil lamps hanging on them. As soon as an hao entered the palace, he felt a cold wind blowing towards him, making him shiver uncontrollably. Before he could think more, a terrible killing intent came from behind. A dark red long scarf flew out from the darkness, swiftly passing by the two and circling in front, trying to entangle them. Qi Jiuxiao took out the dragon-slaying spear and threw it forward. A dragon's roar exploded, and a golden dragon condensed, illuminating the whole palace with golden light. The golden dragon formed by the dragon-slaying spear fiercely collided with the dark red scarf, stirring up strong winds that ravaged the palace space. And Hao only felt himself about to be swept away. Fortunately, Qi Jiuxiao was holding him, but even so, he was still very uncomfortable. Qi Jiuxiao leaped up, his toes stepping on the dragon-slaying spear. He flipped into the air, jumping over the dark red scarf, and then turned to look below. The dark red scarf was like a red river plunging into the darkness, with no end in sight. Figures attacked from all directions, quickly surrounding them. Qin Xuanin flew from the front, landing less than 30 feet from the two, and said with a sneer, "Qi Jiuxiao, where do you think you're going?" Qi Jiuxiao put down an hao and coldly said, "Want to kill me? Fine, let this kid go first." And Hao was urgent, just about to speak but was stopped by Qi Jiuxiao raising his hand. Qin Xuanin laughed dismissively. "Do you think you are in any position to negotiate with me right now?" As he finished speaking, a figure appeared beside him. It was an old man in white with a cold face, holding a jade lamp. Qi Jiuxiao slightly turned his head, glancing back. Another loose immortal had already appeared behind him. "Master," and Hao whispered through clenched teeth. Qi Jiuxiao heard his words and smiled. "And Hao, it seems your master cannot hear your call. But my master is coming soon." Qi Jiuxiao said softly with a smile. With these words, the faces of the 7 Stars Spirit Realm cultivators slightly changed. The old man in white beside Qi Jiuxiao instinctively turned around to look. "You bully my disciple, does Divine Soul True Lord agree?" A cold voice echoed through the palace, the killing intent in the tone making everyone feel as if they were in an ice cellar. Qi Jiuxiao's face once again showed an unruly and wild smile, looking at Qin Xuanin as if he were prey. The autumn wind blew, lifting the fallen leaves off the ground and gently putting them down again. Guwen was sweeping the ground, and the blood prison great saint beside him curiously asked, "Master, there are so many disciples in the valley, why do you sweep the ground yourself?" Not only Guwen but other disciples were also sweeping the ground in the 3rd Medicine Valley. However, compared to the vast Medicine Valley, the hundreds of people seemed sparse. It's sometimes good to sweep the ground. Feeling the earth with your hands and feet might lead to some insights. Guwen casually replied. He sounded very perfunctory, but his words fell on the ears of the blood prison great saint and seemed very reasonable. The blood prison great saint began to walk back and forth, feeling the earth and nature. Guwen looked toward the direction of Divine Exotic City, where 4 wandering immortals had gathered, 2 from the 7 Stars Spirit Realm, one was Qi Jiuxiao's master, and another was Nine-Finger Divine Lord. Nine-Finger Divine Lord was leading Chu Jingfeng to search for immortal spirit, while the other 3 wandering immortals were engaged in chaotic battles. Qi Jiuxiao's master had killed 2 loose immortals and more than a dozen 7 Stars Spirit Realm disciples, attracting 2 wandering immortals. The situation was not good, as Qi Jiuxiao's master had already fallen into a disadvantage. Guwen was not in a hurry to take action, first letting Qi Jiuxiao's master fight for a while longer. He had to sweep this area clean. After a while, Guwen looked towards the west. Another wandering immortal had arrived. "It's really lively," Guwen thought to himself, feeling a bit worried. The increasing presence of immortal path beings on this continent could easily bring catastrophe to the immortal cultivation world of the 3 dynasties. He just hoped this matter would end soon. In a minor heaven and earth within Divine Exotic City, yellow sand covered the sky, and the wind raged wildly. On the desert, and Hao stood in front of Qi Jiuxiao, with a faint golden light around them, blocking the wind and sand. Qi Jiuxiao was sitting and healing his wounds, looking ahead. Booming sounds kept coming with heat waves, flying leaves, and gold flames entangled and surging. In the distance, mana rainbows flashed brilliantly, shaking the heavens and the earth. The battle of wandering immortals, how terrifying! And Hao could not see the figures of the three wandering immortals. Even with the protection of the formation, he felt his body might turn to dust at any moment, which was an unbearably uncomfortable feeling. Qi Jiuxiao could barely see the wandering immortals battle, and because of that, his face looked even gloomier. His most respected master had already fallen into disadvantage. He realized that doom was inevitable. This time, he had also implicated in Hao and his master, which made his fists clench tightly. Damn it! Qi Jiuxiao realized for the first time the power of 7 Stars Spirit Realm. Before, he had mainly been active within the territory governed by Star Sea congregations. Even when encountering 7 Stars Spirit Realm cultivators, he rarely suffered losses. Now, coming to the territory of 7 Stars Spirit Realm, he recognized that those people feared not him, but the Star Sea congregations. And Hao turned back and asked nervously, "Senior, what is the situation now?" Qi Jiuxiao was silent, not answering, just staring ahead. Seeing his face darken to the point of dripping water, and Hao knew the situation was bad, making him even more anxious. "Qi Bei, today your disciple must die. If you insist on living and dying with him, then prepare to vanish." A majestic voice rang out, followed by the sound of a zither, causing an Hao inside the formation to feel dizzy, with everything in his field of vision shaking. Qi Jiuxiao took a deep breath, then stood up. "Senior, what are you going to do?" And Hao frowned and asked. Qi Jiuxiao did not answer but shouted loudly, "I take full responsibility for my actions. This matter started because of me. Let my master go. I am willing to die to atone." It's not up to you to talk here." An old voice echoed, filled with displeasure. "Master, shut up." With a loud and violent shout, the desert rolled, and black lightning bolts extended from the horizon, as if tearing the sky apart. The battle became more intense. The formation protecting In Hao and the others was also shaking violently, causing In Hao to sway. He looked nervously ahead and suddenly saw a figure walking through the wind and sand. "Immortal swallowing scorpion. You are truly vicious. Does 7 Stars Spirit Realm really belong to the righteous path?" An old voice rang out again, filled with anger. What is righteous and what is demonic? Can you Star Sea congregations really distinguish?" Another voice replied, filled with disdain. Qi Jiuxiao panicked and quickly shouted, "Let my master go. I am willing to die." His gaze instinctively turned to the figure walking through the sandstorm ahead. That figure stepped out of the sandstorm, revealing its true form, a man wearing purple robes, with white hair, a youthful face, and eyes as cold as serpents. He looked at Qi Jiuxiao and coldly said, "Whether you are willing or not, you must die, and your master must also die now." Qi Jiuxiao was furious, wishing he could rush out and fight the man in purple robes for 300 rounds. But he remained rational, knowing he was no match for his opponent. If he went out, he probably wouldn't withstand even one move and would only distract his master. Boom! The rolling yellow sand behind the man in purple robes was suddenly scattered. An old man with torn robes and a face covered in blood flew, stepping on a golden ring. Before he could get close to the man in purple robes, a terrifying giant scorpion pincer swept in from the side, directly catching him and pulling him back, disappearing into the sandstorm. "Master!" Qi Jiuxiao shouted hoarsely. The man in purple robes raised his right hand, igniting a strange white flame in his palm. He looked at Qi Jiuxiao and In Hao with a mocking smile. He approached the formation step by step, the wind and sand behind him swirling madly, with waves of qi created by mana soaring like dragons, creating a spectacular scene. "Just wait for death. Soon, your master will come down to join you." The man in purple robes said coldly. As he finished speaking, he was already less than 10 steps away from the formation. He deliberately approached slowly, tormenting Qi Jiuxiao and Enhao's minds while trying to distract Qi Bei. Enhao looked at him and couldn't help but recall the scene when Xian Tianyi was held back by mysterious cultivators. Just like last time, he was still utterly useless, weak enough to hate himself. He gritted his teeth, closed his eyes, and couldn't help shouting out loudly, "Master!" He screamed with all his might, his voice echoing inside the minor heaven and earth. "Master? What? You also have a master? Can your master compare to Mayana?" The man in purple robes laughed with more disdain. Before he finished his sentence, a hand suddenly pressed on his shoulder, forcibly stopping him. Qi Jiuxiao's pupils dilated, staring in shock at the figure behind the man in purple robes. The man in purple robes instinctively tried to use divine skills to dodge. He was horrified to find that the mana in his body was solidified and immovable. He tried to use his own qi to break free, but the hand on his shoulder was as heavy as the heaviest mountain in the world, pressing down on him. The more he struggled, the greater the pressure felt. "Do you think I have the cultivation level of the Mahayana realm?" A cold voice came from behind the man in purple robes. And Hao heard it too and opened his eyes to see. When he saw the scene outside the formation, he was instantly overjoyed. "Master! You finally came!" And Hao looked at Guwen with surging emotions, his eyes quickly turning red. Guwen, who had displayed the 9 extremes yin-yang body, ignored Hao. He was standing sideways, his left hand pressing on the shoulder of the man in purple robes with a casual posture, yet the man in purple robes couldn't move. Who are you?" Another voice rang out, filled with fear. As he finished speaking, a figure suddenly appeared behind Guwen. It was a man in red robes, dressed extravagantly, exuding powerful energy, holding a short sword, and stabbing towards Guwen's lower back. Guwen, holding the shoulder of the man in purple robes, vanished into thin air, causing the man in red robes to miss. Before the man in red robes could turn around, he felt an unimaginable force hitting his back. His body uncontrollably fell to his knees on the sand, and then a foot stepped on his back, pushing his spine down. Guwen, with his left hand pressing on the shoulder of the man in purple robes and his right foot stomping on the back of the man in red robes, Su. Chapter 220. The legendary heaven and earth flying immortal. Seeing Gu An's fierce suppression of the 2 wandering immortals, Qi Jiuxiao was dumbfounded, while Enhao trembled with excitement. Guwen glanced at the purple-robed man in his hand and cast a lifespan detection. 9 stars True Lord, 5th layer of Wandering Immortal Realm 42089/15000/160000. He then looked at the red-robed man at his feet and performed the lifespan detection as well. True Lord Kangyi, 6th layer of Wandering Immortal Realm 56803/16000/1900000. Both are quite old. They all call themselves True Lords. Could it be that True Lord is a title in the 7-star spirit realm? As Guwen was pondering, True Lord Kangyi at his feet struggled to speak. "Who might you be, sir? If that boy is indeed your disciple, take him away." Boom. The whirlwind behind Guwen suddenly exploded, darkening Enhao and Qi Jiuxiao's vision. A massive black scorpion, as large as a giant mountain, attacked, its pincers clamping towards Guwen, immortal swallowing scorpion. Its speed was insanely fast, so fast that Qi Jiuxiao and Enhao couldn't react in time. They only saw the immortal swallowing scorpion attack suddenly, and before they could see it clearly, it exploded. Black venom splattered everywhere, followed by an even more terrifying roar. Rumble! A vast cloud of dust rose behind Guwen, covering the sky with black venom. Impossible! The 9 stars True Lord, held by Guwen, had his eyes wide open in disbelief. That immortal swallowing scorpion was also in the Wandering Immortal Realm, yet it died instantly? He didn't even see what method Guwen used, feeling that as soon as the scorpion's pincers touched Guwen, its body exploded. You successfully seized 57,009 years of lifespan from the immortal swallowing scorpion, second level of traveling immortal realm. Seeing the notification, Guan felt slightly satisfied. The immortal swallowing scorpion died under the Taoist gang primal energy, which was manifested by the Ji family's divine skill, heaven and earth path gang. Whenever someone attacked Guan's body, this divine skill would trigger, killing the attacker. True Lord Kangi could neither extend his divine sense nor turn his head, but he felt as if he would be annihilated the moment the Taoist gang primal energy exploded. He had never felt so desperate. The opponent had definitely surpassed the wandering immortal realm. How could such a being exist on this backward continent? The 9 stars true lord, witnessing the explosion of the Taoist gang primal energy, was even more terrified. At this moment, the 2 wandering immortals lost all will to fight, feeling only endless fear. The longer they lived, the more they feared death. Senior Tiv, True Lord Kangi said, trembling. Although Guan did not receive any hostility prompt, True Lord Kangi dared to let the immortal swallowing scorpion attack him, truly courting death. Guan suddenly exerted force with his right foot, directly crushing True Lord Kangi's body into blood mist, leaving only a storage bag. The 9 stars True Lord's eyes widened in despair. From Guan's palm, the breaking path divine light burst forth, instantly reducing him to dust, leaving no trace behind. The storage bag of the 9 stars True Lord also fell to the ground. The 2 wandering immortals died without any resistance. And Hao and Qi Jiuxiao were stunned. They knew how powerful these 2 wandering immortals were, which made them even more bewildered. 2 notifications popped up before Guan. He successfully seized 20,000 years of lifespan. A figure flew over and landed behind Guan, bowing and cupping his fists. Thank you, Senior, for saving me. It was Qi Jiuxiao's master, Qi Bei. Qi Bei looked extremely miserable, his body oozing black blood. Don't reveal this to anyone, or you'll become my enemy. Guan warned before disappearing into thin air, taking the 2 storage bags with him. Qi Bei looked up, but his divine sense could no longer detect Guan, making him sigh. At this moment, Qi Jiuxiao rushed out of the formation, supporting Qi Bei. Master, are you okay? Qi Jiuxiao asked anxiously. Qi Bei struggled to speak. Bring out the medicine cauldron. I need to expel the poison. Qi Jiuxiao hurried to comply. Soon, Qi Bei entered the cauldron to heal, taking out his prepared medicinal herbs and spirit water. And Hao approached the great cauldron and cautiously asked, "What's the origin of the immortal swallowing scorpion?" Qi Jiuxiao, staring at the great cauldron, said solemnly, "The immortal swallowing scorpion is one of the 9 ancient deadly poisons of the ocean and the most powerful venomous insect alive today. If an immortal is swallowed by it, they instantly turn into toxic blood. Stung by it, their cultivation dissipates, and gods and Buddhas cannot save them." So terrifying? And Hao was startled, not knowing how to comfort Qi Jiuxiao. Qi Jiuxiao turned to him and asked, "Who exactly is your master?" It's simply, Guan's earlier performance was terrifying. Even though Qi Jiuxiao was saved, he feared Guan's power. It was a fear born from something beyond his comprehension. "I can't reveal my master's name, he forbids it." And Hao shook his head, feeling proud inside. Whenever he encountered a higher realm existence, he would wonder what realm his master had reached. However, his master kept breaking his understanding time and time again. No matter how powerful an entity appeared before his master, they were but ants. He realized that although he was extremely talented, compared to his master, he wasn't worth mentioning. He even suspected that his own talents were due to his master's favor. Qi Jiuxiao fell silent after hearing this. He recalled Guan's previous demeanor, eyes showing admiration. A true man cultivating the immortal path should have such a presence. Elsewhere, Guan did not return to the supreme sect but instead arrived at an isolated island on the sea with one step. He appeared in the forest, quickly sorting through the storage bags of the 2 true lords, destroying suspicious items, and throwing the treasures into his own storage bag. As his storage bag wasn't enough to hold the inheritance of these 2, He had to refine one of their storage bags. After a while, he finally left. He entered his own grotto heaven with one step, emptied everything out, and burned the 9 stars True Lord's storage bag to ashes. Although he checked and found nothing wrong, he still wanted to be cautious. After doing all this, he returned to the Supreme Sect. He stood on the mountaintop next to the Mystic Valley, gazing into the distance. Although it was easy to kill 3 wandering immortals, he wasn't at peace. He knew things were about to escalate, but he didn't regret it. He couldn't let the enemies survive. There was another way. He also wanted to find the immortal spirit of the divine exotic city and give it to someone to end this conflict prematurely. Guan had no interest in divine exotic city, despite its power, because its karma was too great. He didn't want any trouble. Giving it to someone else to follow the Star Sea congregations away would be the best result. He had visited divine exotic city twice and vaguely tracked the immortal spirit's whereabouts. Several days later, within the minor heaven and earth of divine exotic city, the wind and sand had ceased. Qi Jiuxiao helped Qi Bei, who had just emerged from the cauldron, to sit down. Qi Bei, now dressed in a clean white robe, had a pale face and disheveled hair, lacking any wandering immortal demeanor. Sitting down, he sighed. I didn't expect divine exotic city to attract a heaven and earth flying immortal. And Hao's face showed curiosity upon hearing this. Heaven and earth flying immortal? Is it the legendary realm capable of traveling beyond the heavens? Qi Jiuxiao's eyes brightened with excitement. Qi Bei nodded. It must be. Being in the same realm, he couldn't have possibly defeated those 2 true lords so easily. He looked at Qi Jiuxiao and said, Senior saved us, so we must keep our promise and not speak of his intervention. Just say it was cultivators from the Star Sea congregations, got it? Qi Jiuxiao nodded heavily. Qi Bei then looked at Hao, scrutinizing him. He could see that Hao had extraordinary roots and asked, Is your master also from the Supreme Sect? He could see the karma surrounding Hao but could only see the past 10 years, not the interactions between Hao and his master. As for LV Bayan, he was quickly dismissed. A mere unification realm was not worth his attention. I'm not sure, he probably isn't. Hao shook his head, keeping a cautious mind and not fully trusting Qi Bei. Qi Bei smiled. You're very fortunate, young man. With such a master, your future is limitless. How about joining the Star Sea congregations later? Hao hesitated. I don't have just one master. My other master is the sect leader of the Supreme Sect, and I have to take on the responsibility of strengthening my sect. Qi Bei's smile grew even more gentle. It's not about leaving the Supreme Sect. You can train with the Star Sea congregations for a while and help establish good relations between the 2 sections. The Star Sea congregations can help you grow strong quickly. Once you're powerful enough, you'll better protect the Supreme Sect. In the future, if the Star Sea congregations face difficulties, you can offer your help. Hearing this, Hao found it hard to refuse and looked towards Qi Jiuxiao. Qi Jiuxiao snorted, Is my master going to deceive you? Xian Tianyi is the best example. Traveling together all this way, he had learned about the relationship between Xian Tianyi and Hao. He also wanted to win Hao over. Winning over Hao meant winning over the heaven and earth flying immortal from a few days ago. A heaven and earth flying immortal. The Star Sea congregations had produced such beings, but those were legends, and he had never seen one with his own eyes. Hao hesitated for a while but finally nodded in agreement, bringing smiles to Qi Bei and Qi Jiuxiao. Qi Bei's smile faded as he said, I haven't completely expelled the immortal swallowing scorpion's toxin. Let's leave divine exotic city to avoid the 7 stars spirit realm's pursuit. But divine exotic city? Qi Jiuxiao hesitated. Qi Bei glared at him angrily. There is a heaven and earth flying immortal in divine exotic city, along with other wandering immortal presences. Do you think you have the qualifications to compete for the immortal spirit? Qi Jiuxiao immediately backed down, scratching his head with an awkward smile, not daring to insist further. Hao felt some regret, but leaving now wouldn't be a loss. He had found many treasures alongside Qi Jiuxiao and had gained a lot. So, the 3 of them packed up and began to search for a way out. In a dark hall, one side of the wall was adorned with a row of brass oil lamps, some of which had already gone out. In front of the lamp wall stood a woman in a purple dress with a veil, her long hair coiled into a bun. Her revealed eyebrows were delicate, but the coldness in her eyes added a sense of mystery to her aura. A boy dressed in a sleeveless top appeared on her shoulder, tilting his head and asking, "Mother, what are you looking at?" Upon closer inspection, the boy's feet were embedded in the shoulder. Chapter 221. Immortal Spirit, I Want It. Mother is seeing who has fallen again. The woman in the purple dress spoke slowly, her voice ethereal, echoing in the hall like the sound of spring water flowing through a mountain stream. The boy on her shoulder asked confusedly, "What is there to see? People die all the time, don't they? As long as less than half of the lamps on this wall are extinguished, the fortune of the 7 stars spirit realm won't be severed." The woman in the purple dress replied, 3 wandering immortals have died recently, all from the same place. This place is close to the Star Sea congregations. I don't know if it's their plot or if someone else is causing trouble in the dark. The boy followed her gaze to the oil lamps on the wall and began to ponder. At this moment, footsteps echoed from the darkness behind, and an old voice said, "Cave Master, the spirit mirror is showing divine sense fluctuations." When the woman in the purple dress heard this, she turned and walked into the darkness. The boy on her shoulder turned his head to look, his clear eyes drawn to the oil lamps on the wall. Under the night sky, in a dilapidated city, the 9-fingered Divine Lord sat meditating in front of a fire, with Chu Jingfeng sitting next to him. Chu Jingfeng occasionally glanced into the distance. Beneath the moonlight, dense fog surged, vaguely revealing terrifying ghostly shadows. "Can you feel it?" the 9-fingered Divine Lord suddenly asked. Chu Jingfeng's thoughts were pulled back, and he cautiously asked, "Master, feel what?" The 9-fingered Divine Lord whispered, "It is approaching." "Who is it?" "The immortal spirit of divine exotic city." Chu Jingfeng's eyes widened, and his breath quickened. Since coming to divine exotic city, he had learned about the immortal spirit from the 9-fingered Divine Lord. As long as the immortal spirit accepted a master, one could control the great power of divine exotic city. The immortal spirit's choice of master was not solely based on cultivation level, it might also depend on fate, which was why so many non-immortal path realm beings came to adventure here. Chu Jingfeng did not dare to hope that he could obtain divine exotic city, but he hoped his master could. The stronger his master became, the more benefits he would get. Moreover, from the bottom of his heart, he was grateful to the 9-fingered Divine Lord. It was the 9-fingered Divine Lord who had given him a chance to be reborn. The 9-fingered Divine Lord stopped speaking and continued absorbing energy. Chu Jingfeng then began to imagine what might happen next. After entering the city with the 9-fingered Divine Lord, he had witnessed many battles. No matter how strong the demons and ghosts were, they were no match for his master. He believed that as soon as the immortal spirit appeared, his master would inevitably control it and thus dominate divine exotic city. The moon set and the sun rose. The sun rose in the east outside the city. Chu Jingfeng was practicing qi absorption cultivation when he suddenly felt the ground tremble. He opened his eyes to find the surrounding buildings shaking. The 9-fingered Divine Lord, who was sitting opposite him, slowly stood up. Before Chu Jingfeng could ask, the 9-fingered Divine Lord raised his hand, and both of them soared into the sky. Chu Jingfeng looked down and his eyes widened in fear. He saw endless demons and ghosts appearing in all directions, surging like black waves, engulfing the city's buildings, and stimulating his eyes. This is the true power of divine exotic city, the divine soul demons. Over countless years, an endless number of divine soul demons have accumulated here. This is a force that can overthrow the mortal world. The 9-fingered Divine Lord spoke indifferently, looking into the distance. Before Chu Jingfeng could respond, the 9-fingered Divine Lord raised his right hand and pressed down. Boom! The city below instantly collapsed, and countless divine soul demons dissipated into ghostly mist. It seemed as if the entire earth was collapsing, with dust flying up, turning the sky and ground murky. Chu Jingfeng vaguely heard a child's playful laughter, like a ghost, giving him goosebumps. Divine Exotic City, East Gate. The gate stood open, and from outside, the streets inside appeared empty. Suddenly, the space inside the gate rippled, and 3 people emerged: Qi Bei, Qi Jiuxiao, and An Hao. The 3 of them walked 10 steps forward. An Hao turned to look back, seeing the majestic city gate of Divine Exotic City, and sighed in relief. Finally, they were out. "And how?" A voice came from afar, and Hao looked and saw a group of cultivators in the distance, including LV Baden. And Hao quickly called out, "Master." He was about to go over, but Qi Bei blocked him. "From now on, do not acknowledge your association with the Supreme Sect," Qi Bei said sternly, his gaze fixed on the distance. And Hao frowned and asked, "Why?" "They are here." Qi Bei's expression turned serious. He raised his hand, pulling out a magic artifact, ready for battle. Qi Jiuxiao also took out the dragon-slaying spear, cursing under his breath. "It's troublesome to be in the territory of the 7 Stars Spirit Realm. These guys move fast." After 7 days and the fall of 2 wandering immortals, it's impossible for the 7 Stars Spirit Realm not to have noticed. Qi Bei said calmly. Qi Jiuxiao looked at him and asked, "Master, what do we do?" Qi Bei sneered. "If the 7 Stars Spirit Realm makes a move, our Star Sea congregations will respond in kind." Hearing this, Qi Jiuxiao showed a smile of delight. He turned to look into the distance, his face lighting up with excitement. "So, it's you, Qi Bei of the Qi family from the Star Sea congregations. Do you know the consequences of killing our disciples in the territory of the 7 Stars Spirit Realm?" An icy voice echoed through the sky, the killing intent in it sending a chill down the spines of all beings outside the city. The disciples of the Supreme Sect quickly stood up, nervously looking into the distance. Terrifying auras erupted from all directions, shaking the earth and mountains. And Hao looked around and found that they were surrounded. Such a fearsome aura. Could it be from wandering immortals as well? He was secretly alarmed, his eyes turning towards Qi Bei, wondering if this senior could hold out. When would the wandering immortals of the Star Sea congregations arrive? "Oh, so this land belongs to the 7 Stars Spirit Realm. I thought you had long abandoned it." A domineering voice rang out, opposing the previous wandering immortal of the 7 Stars Spirit Realm. Qi Bei clearly recognized the owner of this voice, a smile appearing on his face. The true battle of the wandering immortals was about to begin. The world was desolate, and smoky ghostly mist pervaded the land. Chu Jingfeng stood on a gourd, surrounded by a faint light veil. His eyes were fixed ahead. The 9-fingered Divine Lord stood bare-chested, surrounded by fiery energy, his hair wild, looking like a war god, his posture imposing. In front of the 9-fingered Divine Lord floated a fiery red phoenix, its wings spanning 1,000 feet, flapping as fiery waves surged, like dragons sweeping towards the 9-fingered Divine Lord. "Humph! Since you refuse to bow, I can only subdue you." The 9-fingered Divine Lord spoke, his eyes cold, his body covered with black runes, crawling and horrific. With those words, he suddenly charged towards the phoenix. The phoenix let out an ear-piercing screech, flapping its wings once more. The surrounding dust waves scattered, revealing terrifying ghostly figures, each 100 feet tall, clad in battle armor, wielding long weapons, like ancient divine generals, exuding an unrivaled aura. In the blink of an eye, the 9-fingered Divine Lord was engulfed by these terrifying ghostly figures. Boom! A violent gale exploded, scattering the ghostly figures. The 9-fingered Divine Lord burst forth with relentless energy, striking towards the phoenix, shaking the mountains and rivers. This punch shattered space, and an ancient bell seemingly from the river of time emerged from a space rift, crashing directly into the phoenix. The enormous phoenix seemed small as a sparrow before a tree compared to this ancient bell. The phoenix let out a mournful cry, as chains emerged from the surface of the bell, quickly binding the phoenix. No matter how it struggled, it couldn't break free from the chains. The air was filled with a frenzied energy as more and more divine soul demons approached from all directions, of various sizes and forms, with even 1,000-foot-tall divine soul descending from the sky. The nine-fingered divine lord faced countless enemies alone, his punches and kicks like the wind, shaking the mountains and rivers, unstoppable. Chu Jingfeng stood on the gourd, his blood boiling as he looked on. Though he couldn't see the specific movements of the nine-fingered divine lord clearly, seeing those divine soul demons being destroyed one after another, he could feel the immense power of the nine-fingered divine lord. So strong. At this moment, Chu Jingfeng even felt that the sword Dao was not the ultimate path. The path of the physical body was the strongest. The world roared, and the earth continuously raised dust. No matter how many divine soul demons the nine-fingered divine lord eradicated, there were always more to come. Rumble, an enormous shadow rose at the edge of the world, like a mountain towering up, awe-inspiring. Chu Jingfeng looked from afar, feeling a chilling aura. What is that? He thought, terrified. Before he could think further, the mysterious giant shadow stepped out from the dust waves that covered the sky. It was a figure 10,000 feet tall, with a strong build, each muscle like a rocky mountain, exuding a power that made all living things fear. It was entirely black, with disheveled hair, wearing only armored pants, and holding a massive axe in its hand. Wielding the axe in both hands, it swept forward. The force of the axe, even without reaching, sent a devastating wind along its path, nearly flinging the gourd Chu Jingfeng stood on. The nine-fingered divine lord appeared in front of the gourd out of thin air, throwing a punch. Dong! The deafening roar echoed, as the nine-fingered divine lord met the mysterious giant's axe with his own power. Both sides retreated. The nine-fingered divine lord frowned, feeling his right fist numb. The mysterious giant stabilized after retreating several steps, then swung the axe again. This time, the mysterious force from the heavens gathered on the axe blade, slashing down with the power of creation. The nine-fingered divine lord raised his hand, which had only 4 fingers, extending 2 fingers as a golden beam shot out, piercing through the murkiness of the world, sweeping all obstacles aside. Boom! The 10,000-foot-tall giant shadow was annihilated by the golden light, leaving a vacuum in the world, and a huge canyon appeared below, astonishing Chu Jingfeng. The nine-fingered divine lord turned and flew towards the phoenix. The phoenix was still trapped by the ancient bell, unable to move. Just as the nine-fingered divine lord was about to approach the phoenix, a figure appeared out of thin air, raising a hand to capture the phoenix. The phoenix with wings spanning 1,000 feet shrank to the size of a palm. "Who are you?" the nine-fingered divine lord asked in a deep voice. He didn't rashly advance, as he couldn't gauge the person's strength. Guan, in his 9 extremes yin-yang body form, turned to the nine-fingered divine lord and said, "The immortal spirit, I'll take it." The nine-fingered divine lord's face instantly twisted with rage and H. Chapter 222. Divine Exotic Immortal Spirit Recognizes Its Master. Facing the furious nine-fingered divine lord, Guan remained composed. Holding the phoenix, he said, "Feel carefully, and you will understand that this karmic consequence is not something you can bear." Hearing this, the nine-fingered divine lord, who was about to attack, instinctively dispersed his divine sense. A few moments later, his expression changed drastically, and fear filled his eyes. The divine soul demons were still pouring out, throwing themselves at them recklessly, their roars echoing through the heavens. Guan suddenly squeezed the phoenix in his hand, and the divine soul demons in the heavens were obliterated one after another, turning into ashes, and the noise abruptly ceased. Chu Jingfeng stood on his gourd, turned his head, and looked at Guan in the distance, his face changing dramatically. A dark purple demon shadow, surrounded by demonic qi. Fud! He had just uttered a word when a terrifying divine sense locked onto him, scaring him into silence. The nine-fingered divine lord also regained his calm. He looked at Guan and asked, "What do you plan to do?" He could sense a more horrifying presence brewing beneath the earth. Purely in terms of aura, it was beyond what he could contend with. Guan did not answer but instead flipped his palm downward. Rumble, the earth shattered, rocks rose into the air, and the entire world seemed on the verge of collapsing. The momentum released by Guan was so terrifying that even the Nine-Finger Divine Lord felt fear. Just how high is his cultivation level? The Nine-Finger Divine Lord thought to himself, feeling fortunate. If he had acted rashly earlier, or if the other party had directly ambushed him, he might have been in grave danger. Chu Jingfeng also looked nervously downward. Rocks ascended around him, flying towards the sky. As far as the eye could see, the distant earth was breaking apart endlessly, a visual impact so intense that he did not dare to breathe. Suddenly, as if seeing something, his eyes widened, and his body trembled. As the earth shattered, a massive black object appeared below, boundless and terrifying. In the daylight, this extreme black mass looked so horrifying and scary. Looking from above, the black mass below was writhing. It was so immense that its shape couldn't be discerned, much less identified. Guan fixed his eyes on it. Divine exotic immortal spirit, heaven and earth flying immortal realm 3rd layer 0/0/0. No lifespan was shown, but there was a realm. Guan's right hand, which was suspended in the air, suddenly clenched, and the gigantic divine exotic immortal spirit below began to shrink at a visible speed. This was a divine skill, universe in the palm. Previously, he had used this divine skill to bring the phoenix into his palm. This time, he desired to capture a heaven and earth flying immortal. The divine exotic immortal spirit struggled frantically, but wrapped in Guan's mana, it had no way to escape. Under the watchful eyes of the Nine-Finger Divine Lord and Chu Jingfeng, the divine exotic immortal spirit, now a black mass, rapidly shrank. Eventually, it fell into Guan's hand, resembling a mass of black qi, constantly changing shape. Guan then disappeared from his original spot, leaving the Nine-Finger Divine Lord and Chu Jingfeng behind, unable to recover their wits for a long time. After a long while, Chu Jingfeng flew to the Nine-Finger Divine Lord's side and asked nervously, "Master, what should we do next?" He knew that the figure earlier was Sword Venerable Fudao, but he decided to keep it a secret. Sword Venerable Fudao was the most revered existence in the hearts of all disciples of the Supreme Sect. He had repeatedly saved the Supreme Sect and the human race of the 3 dynasties. Chu Jingfeng felt that he owed Sword Venerable Fudao his life, so he chose to side with him. Even if he revealed Sword Venerable Fudao's identity, he felt it would only push the Nine-Finger Divine Lord into the abyss. From what had been shown earlier, the Nine-Finger Divine Lord was no match for Sword Venerable Fudao. Thinking of this, Chu Jingfeng felt deeply emotional. During the days he followed the Nine-Finger Divine Lord, he had thought that the Nine-Finger Divine Lord was stronger than Sword Venerable Fudao, and that he had struck the ultimate blessing. But the results? He couldn't help but wonder just how powerful Sword Venerable Fudao was. It now seemed that Sword Venerable Fudao was not from the Supreme Sect but was merely hiding there to protect them. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord took a deep breath and said, "It's time to leave." Having the divine exotic immortal spirit taken away made him furious, but Guan's universe in the palm divine skill had extinguished any desire to fight. Moreover, the aura emitted by the divine exotic immortal spirit was clearly not something he could handle. If the mysterious person hadn't appeared earlier, he might have been swallowed by the divine exotic immortal spirit and turned into a divine soul demon. Chu Jingfeng secretly breathed a sigh of relief upon hearing his master's words. He truly feared that his master would have an obsession. After wandering through Divine Exotic City for so long, he had already reaped some rewards and was eager to return to the Supreme Sect to meditate in seclusion. On the other side, Guan arrived at the most secluded minor heaven and earth. There were no living beings here. The sky was dim, and the ground was dotted with trees that looked like evil ghosts. He glanced at the divine exotic immortal spirit in his hand, no longer struggling but trembling. Just as Guan hesitated about whom to give it to, it suddenly burst open and then drilled into Guan's palm. The process was extremely quick. When Guan wanted to stop it, he suddenly felt its emotions. It was pleading. Guan fell silent. Soon, he felt his mana merging into the divine exotic immortal spirit's body. This was a process of accepting a master that he had never experienced before. He was taking control of the divine exotic immortal spirit and the entire divine exotic city. A 30-minute incense time later, the divine exotic immortal spirit reappeared, condensed in Guan's palm. From now on, Guan was the master of the divine exotic immortal spirit and the master of divine exotic city. This made him feel somewhat complicated. If he had forcibly stopped it earlier, the divine exotic immortal spirit would have turned to ashes, so he had to accept it. Of course, now Guan could easily squeeze the divine exotic immortal spirit, causing it to cease to exist. After accepting the master, Guan gained more understanding of divine exotic city. Even if the divine exotic immortal spirit was destroyed, as long as divine exotic city remained, a new divine exotic immortal spirit would be born. Whether it was the same one was unclear, as it resisted death much. Master! The voice of the divine exotic immortal spirit echoed in Guan's mind, sounding like a young boy. Guan asked, "Can you share your power with others, hiding the fact that I am your master, and making others appear as your master?" The divine exotic immortal spirit wiggled in his palm, suddenly transforming into a small black figure. It had no hair or facial features, just a body resembling a 5 or 6-year-old boy, standing about 10 centimeters tall. The divine exotic immortal spirit tilted its head, considered it for a moment, and said, "It can be done, but wouldn't you be unhappy?" Guan replied, "No. I want you to protect one of my juniors, but you must not reveal my presence to him. You have to pretend that he is your master." Upon hearing this, the divine exotic immortal spirit nodded obediently. Guan disappeared with it. He arrived in another realm, a dense forest where Liya and Zhang Buku were resting. Guan directed the divine exotic immortal spirit with his mind to find Liya. The divine exotic immortal spirit immediately leaped from his hand and went to find Liya. In divine exotic city, the person Guan cared most about was undoubtedly Liya. Although Liya had numerous opportunities, he was clearly far behind geniuses like An Hao and LV Xian, so Guan decided to help him. As for An Hao, whether he had divine exotic city or not, he would eventually rise. If he joined the Star Sea congregations, he would possess immortal treasures no less powerful than the dragon-slaying spear, even without a fake immortal treasure like divine exotic city. The dragon-slaying spear was highly powerful, allowing Qi Jiuxiao to display power comparable to a loose immortal. The divine exotic immortal spirit hopped along its way, its aura elusive, unnoticed by Liya and Zhang Buku as they meditated. When the divine exotic immortal spirit landed on Liya's shoulder, a sudden scare made him instinctively open his eyes. "Screech!" The divine exotic immortal spirit called out and then plunged into Liya's face, startling him to his feet. What was that? Liya kept touching his face but felt nothing. Zhang Buku, equally startled, rushed over. Upon learning that something had entered Liya's body, Zhang Buku panicked. The two fumbled around, even using their divine senses to scan, but found nothing strange. After a while, Liya suddenly stopped, his expression peculiar. "Brother Li, are you okay?" Zhang Buku asked nervously. Liya took a deep breath, looked at Zhang Buku, and said with a complicated expression, "Brother, I think I have been accepted as the master by an immortal spirit?" "What?" Zhang Buku's eyes widened, unable to believe his ears. "Is it true?" "It is. Why you? What do you mean? Am I unworthy?" "How are you worthy?" "Show some respect. I can command divine soul demons. If you want to leave, it will be up to me." "Brotherly. We are supposed to live and die together as brothers. You dog. Stop talking like that." In the distance, Guan listened to Liya and Zhang Buku bicker. Under the demonic qi, a smile appeared on his lips. He turned around and disappeared once more. He was the true master of divine exotic city. Within its confines, he could see all the minor heavens and the divine soul demons hidden beneath each. The number of divine soul demons was indeed staggering, and the entire divine exotic city was still in a state of recovery. It would only grow stronger until it became a true immortal treasure once more. Immortal treasures existed eternally. Even if severely damaged, they could recover on their own, making Guan view them differently. Guan planned to harvest the heavenly materials and earthly treasures in divine exotic city. Now, everything in the city belonged to him and was not to be shared with anyone else. Under the rolling thunderclouds, Jiang Qiong sat meditating on the edge of a cliff, below which a majestic river of lava surged, occasionally sending hot waves crashing against the mountainsides. She opened her eyes and frowned. Why hasn't she returned yet? Jiang Qiong muttered to herself. She and the ghost mother of Ephemera had entered divine exotic city together. They had arrived in this world 2 days prior. While Jiang Qiong was healing, the ghost mother of Ephemera had said she would go to scout, but 2 days had passed, and she had not returned. Jiang Qiong was worried. Though she did not consider the ghost mother of Ephemera particularly trustworthy, their long companionship had made her reliant on the ghost mother of Ephemera's abilities. Could the ghost mother of Ephemera be in trouble? She was so cautious. What could have ensnared her? Jiang Qiong sank into thought. If the ghost mother of Ephemera was in danger, surviving alone, let alone obtaining the immortal spirit, would be nigh impossible. Chapter 223. Guan's fantasy. Jiang Qiong grew more uneasy the more she thought about it. She took out an elixir and started accelerating the restoration of her spiritual power. The sky darkened, and the only sound was the lava below crashing against the mountain walls, making the atmosphere incredibly oppressive. Half a day passed. Jiang Qiong's spiritual power had recovered considerably. She stood up and headed in the direction the ghost mother of Ephemera had gone earlier. Meanwhile, Liya had already mastered the power of the divine exotic city. Although he still couldn't see every corner of the city, he felt unbelievably powerful now. Before entering the divine exotic city, he had doubts about the legends of the Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. How could it be that legendary? Let's go, there's a big battle outside the city. Let's go watch the fun. Liya stood up, his face full of high spirits. Zhang Buku followed him up, staring blankly at him. Liya shrugged his shoulder, and the divine exotic immortal spirit jumped out of his body, landing on his shoulder with its hands on its hips, looking very spirited. Looking at the divine exotic immortal spirit, Zhang Buku had a strange expression. It was hard to imagine that this little being was the immortal spirit of the Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. Liya raised his right arm, and the divine exotic immortal spirit immediately mimicked him. Rumble, the ground trembled, and the sky changed color, making Zhang Buku look around nervously. One by one, the divine soul demons broke through the ground, lifting big trees into the sky. The same scene repeated everywhere, forcing Zhang Buku and Liya to stabilize themselves with their spiritual power. Liya laughed proudly. These are my divine army. Follow me to conquer the world. Zhang Buku looked at him, just about to speak, when suddenly the ground beneath them rose with a roar. A terrifying giant shadow stood up, holding a piece of land in its hand with a forest on it, where Zhang Buku and Liya were standing. Compared to this terrifying giant shadow, they were as small as ants. This terrifying giant shadow was the same 10,000-foot figure that had fought against the nine-fingered divine lord before. One hand held the land, and the other held an axe, looking like a giant god who opened the sky, with divine majesty spreading wide. Zhang Buku looked down, his eyes wide with shock. Liya was extremely excited. With such a divine army, how could he not sweep away all enemies? He could sense a terrifying battle outside the divine exotic city, but he also saw the disciples of the supreme sect, and he had to step forward. Primordial ancestor, this time I will be the hero, watch me. Liya was trembling with excitement. He suddenly thought of Guan. If only junior brother Gu was here, how great that would be. But if junior brother Gu were here, he would still worry about his safety. Never mind, after this battle, he would brag about it to him. Leah began to think about what treasures to bring back for junior brother Gu. The divine exotic city was so vast and had countless treasures. Just bringing a few out would be enough to reverse Guan's fate. Guan was in a minor heaven and earth, harvesting heaven and earth treasures. His lifespan kept increasing, which made him very happy. He saw that the 4 gates of the divine exotic city opened, and Leah rushed out with an endless stream of divine soul demons, immediately affecting the battle. Over 20 wandering immortals from the Star Sea congregations and the 7 Stars spirit realm were all disturbed and retreated. The 10,000-foot figure suddenly leaped out of the city, landing on the wilderness, roaring ferociously, and the sound echoed throughout the continent, making everyone tremble with fear. Just the roar alone was enough to make people lose their courage. Guan was not worried about Leah. After all, the divine exotic immortal spirit itself possessed the power of a heaven and earth flying immortal. He continued harvesting heaven and earth treasures, having gained an 80,000-year lifespan today. He did not intend to harvest everything, as he had to leave some for the immortal spirit to continue planting. Since the divine exotic city belonged to him, he planned to let the immortal spirit set rules for Leah. Usually, don't pluck the heaven and earth treasures randomly. It would prepare mature medicinal herbs for Leah, who would surely accept them excitedly without suspicion. Looking at Leah's spirited appearance made Guan want to laugh. After this battle, Leah would surely come to show off. Guan began imagining that 1,000 years later, when Leah thought his end was near and came to bid him farewell with the divine exotic city, what kind of scene would it be? Interesting. Guan was just thinking when he suddenly felt something. He frowned and disappeared from the spot. In another realm, thunder clouds rolled, covering the sky. In a basin between the mountains, Jiang Qiong slowly stood up from the ground, clutching the wound on her right shoulder with her left hand, blood flowing continuously from the corner of her mouth. She looked ahead. Figures in black robes filled the slopes. Meditating at the highest point was an elder with a wooden staff beside him, from which black gas wafted, wrapping the ghost mother of ephemera in the air. The ghost mother of ephemera had already turned into a soul body and was extremely weak. She opened her eyes with difficulty and looked at Jiang Qiong down the mountain. "Little girl, you have a good fighting spirit. Just right for luring the ghost king of hell." The black-robed elder spoke with a mocking tone. The other black-robed cultivators all looked down at Jiang Qiong with cold eyes. To them, Jiang Qiong was already a dead person. The ghost king of hell? What exactly are you looking for? Jiang Qiong gritted her teeth, thinking about how to escape. The difference in cultivation was too great. Any one of these people could easily kill her. The ghost king of hell is the strongest ghost king hidden in this world. It guards an immortal treasure. The black-robed elder spoke nonchalantly. A black-robed cultivator started descending the mountain, step by step approaching Jiang Qiong. Just as Jiang Qiong was extremely anxious, a gust of wind came from afar, making her instinctively close her eyes. The gust of wind whistled past, and Jiang Qiong felt her injury had somewhat healed, whether it was an illusion or not. She quickly opened her eyes and was astonished to find that those mysterious cultivators had disappeared. The soul body of the ghost mother of ephemera was suspended in the air above the slope, slowly falling. Before Jiang Qiong could react, a whooshing sound came from afar, and a blood-red treasure pagoda descended from the sky, landing in front of her, scaring her to retreat instinctively. The blood-red treasure pagoda burst out with immense power, turning into blood mist, which quickly wrapped around Jiang Qiong, pulling her towards the pagoda. Jiang Qiong's face was full of fear when she heard a voice in her ear, "Do not panic." Hearing this voice, Jiang Qiong instantly felt at ease. Sword Venerable Fudao. He had come too. She was pulled into the blood-red treasure pagoda, her figure disappearing. The ghost mother of ephemera fell to the ground, turned her head to look, her face full of worry. Twilight approached. The towering divine exotic city stood on the wilderness, its 4 gates wide open. Cultivators continuously flew out, appearing as if they were being thrown out by some force instead of flying out on their own. Leah stood on a high slope at the edge of the ruins, the divine exotic immortal spirit standing on his shoulder, guarding him. Two figures appeared beside him, one being Qi Bei, the master of Qi Jiuxiao, the other a middle-aged man in luxurious white robes, with a commanding presence. I am the Sea Lord of the Star Sea Congregations, Nan Feng Tian. After this battle, the Seven Stars Spirit Realm will surely hold a grudge against you. You possess the immortal treasure, and relying solely on your own strength might not be enough to protect it. Come back with us to the Star Sea Congregations. We will train you as a true disciple, treating you better than Shen Tianyi. The man in white robes spoke. Qi Bei followed. The Star Sea Congregations is a great righteous sect. Many cultivators from the Supreme Sect are your seniors, so you can join without worry. Leah looked at the divine exotic city and said, "Thank you both for your kindness. I am willing to join the Star Sea Congregations, but can I visit the Supreme Sect first?" He was not foolish. After this battle, he had to choose a power to lean on. LV Baitin had also just sent him a message, advising him to ally with the Star Sea Congregations. Nan Feng Tian smiled. Of course, we also want to visit the Supreme Sect. I heard the Supreme Sect hides a great cultivator stronger than a loose immortal, named Sword Venerable Fudao. This indicates the Supreme Sect's great Qi fortune. It's a treasure land. Leah smiled, thinking that Sword Venerable Fudao was his primordial ancestor. It was not the Supreme Sect's good fortune, but the sect had benefited from the Li family's Qi fortune. Of course, he wouldn't say this out loud to avoid causing trouble for his primordial ancestor. They continued chatting. Leah wanted to take two companions, Zhang Buku and Guan. Hearing that Guan was only in the Foundation establishment realm, Nan Feng Tian advised against taking him, as his cultivation was too low. Without a nascent soul, joining the Star Sea Congregations recklessly would only lead to setbacks, especially since Leah couldn't always look after him. As for Zhang Buku, his strong Qi blood made him an excellent candidate. Leah frowned, not very happy. Qi Bei had to continue to persuade him, describing the atmosphere in the Star Sea Congregations at length, and only then did Leah give up. Far in the Third Medicine Valley harvesting medicinal herbs, Guan pouted. What Foundation establishment realm? I had already formed my core. Guan inwardly sneered, having no intention of joining the Star Sea Congregations. The Star Sea Congregations had too many old monsters, making it unsafe. Unlike the Supreme Sect, where Guan was already the strongest. He had absolute confidence staying there. Seeing that Li Ya allied with the Star Sea Congregations, Guan felt completely relieved. In the divine exotic city, he had harvested 1,500,000 years of lifespan, pushing his lifespan past 1,000,000 again, putting him in a great mood. He planned to revisit the divine exotic city after some time. Even if Leo went to the sea, with his cultivation level, he could hardly escape Guan's divine sense. Besides, Guan had established a soul connection with the divine exotic city, ensuring he could track it wherever it went. Leah had begun expelling the adventurers from the divine exotic city. Guan had not only given Jiang Qiong an immortal treasure but also given Zhenqin one. Immortal treasures could merge into the body, making them hard to detect. Once Yilan was unsealed and her maximum lifespan increased, Guan would give her an immortal treasure too. The divine exotic city held many immortal treasures. Controlling it brought unimaginable gains. Guan couldn't help but hum a little tune. Though he was hiding in the Medicine Valley, he could benefit those around him, making him feel truly great. Deeply hiding his work and name. One day, when his companions discovered the truth, how much gratitude would they feel? Guan started to imagine again. Night fell, and a night passed. At dawn, Guan saw Leah store the divine exotic city within himself and then, under the guidance of Nan Feng Tian and others, head back to the Supreme Sect. They wanted to leave the continent early to avoid any mishaps. Guan arrived early at the Mystic Valley and followed the disciples in their exercises. Just as they finished, Leah came flying from the horizon, directly into the Mystic Valley. Although Divine Exotic City was his, the fact that Li Ya, unaware of the truth, could still care for him this much proved Li Ya's loyalty to him. Gu Wen was very generous to those around him, but most of it was just a small effort. Those he truly gave to also gave him in return. I have to go to the Star Sea congregations. It may take 100 years before I return. Don't miss me too much. Li Ya said proudly, though he felt reluctant inside. 100 years was too long. No one could predict what would happen in 100 years. He also worried about Gu Wen, but he had his own path to follow. Gu Wen nodded and said, 100 years later, as long as you return, I will still be here waiting for you. Although living 1,000 years is hard, now that I have reached core formation, living a few hundred years shouldn't be a problem. Li Ya smiled, then reminisced about the days when they were still minors. Another ancient hour passed, and Li Ya left through the window. Gu Wen looked at the footprints he left behind and suspected he did it on purpose. No way, he'll have to let the divine exotic immortal spirit bully him a bit, in the name of teaching. Gu Wen made up his mind, simultaneously sending orders to the divine exotic immortal spirit through his mind. In the evening, Zhang Buku came to visit Gu Wen. He had prearranged with Li Ya to visit separately. Zhang Buku had personal matters he wanted to discuss alone with Gu Wen, while Li Ya didn't want to disrupt the seniority hierarchy. 3 people in one room would also be crowded. As expected, Zhang Buku debunked Li Ya, saying Li Ya was just lucky and the immortal spirit approached him first. However, he wasn't jealous of Li Ya, rather, he was happy for him, saying that if Li Ya wasn't strong enough, he feared they might die on their adventures. In the end, Zhang Buku also took out numerous heavenly materials and earthly treasures as gifts for Gu Wen in gratitude. Gu Wen tried to decline, but Zhang Buku insisted until Gu Wen had no choice but to accept them. Being able to repay Gu Wen made Zhang Buku very happy. He started talking about how he wished his father could see his achievements now. What a pity! It wasn't until evening that Zhang Buku finally left. Snow fluttered down as troops from the Supreme Sect returned. Zhen Qin came to visit Gu Wen first and also brought many treasures. Gu Wen couldn't help but laugh and cry, but he didn't refuse. 4 days later, at night, another person came to see Gu Wen. It was Jiang Qiong. The two entered the 8 scenic caves to chat. How have you been these years? Gu Wen asked softly, sitting in front of a green vine tree. 2 vines sprouted and began to massage his shoulders. Seeing him enjoying himself like this, Jiang Qiong couldn't help but roll her eyes. Jiang Qiong took out a medicine cauldron, lit a fire, and added water before answering. Pretty well. I recently went to Divine Exotic City and gained a lot. She started placing medicinal ingredients into the cauldron. Gu Wen immediately congratulated her. Do you know who I serve now? Jiang Qiong asked casually. Gu Wen shook his head and said, How would I know? In the immortal cultivation world, I am just an ordinary person who knows very few great cultivators. Sword Venerable Fudao. What? Gu Wen was shocked. He cursed inwardly, I told you not to say anything, how could you spill it so easily? If Jiang Qiong told him about Sword Venerable Fudao today, she might tell others tomorrow. How could he not be nervous? Of course, even if others knew about Jiang Qiong and Sword Venerable Fudao's relationship, it wouldn't threaten Gu Wen. However, Jiang Qiong might attract fatal trouble. I'm only telling you, so don't spread it around. Jiang Qiong said, turning to glare at Gu Wen fiercely. Gu Wen sighed and said, You shouldn't have told me. If he overhears this, won't I be in trouble? Jiang Qiong laughed and said, Don't worry, Sword Venerable Fudao doesn't kill nobodies. I'm just chatting with you. Then she turned the conversation to her experiences in Divine Exotic City. This trip to Divine Exotic City was full of dangers, and I nearly died. If it wasn't for Sword Venerable Fudao's intervention, you wouldn't see me here today. Jiang Qiong said with a slight air of melancholy. Gu Wen comforted her, You're back now though. With your fortune, you might even become an immortal someday. Jiang Qiong shook her head and said, An immortal? That's far too difficult. The higher you stand, the more fears you have. By the way, why do you think Sword Venerable Fudao cares so much for me? Could it be he fancies my looks? She glanced at Guan, anticipating his reaction. Guan frowned and said, "Probably not. He's too powerful and renowned, not lacking in women. I care for you only because you've taught me so many spells. Thinking of you that way is too hurtful." Guan felt insulted. How could Sword Venerable Fudao be so shallow? Seeing Guan frown, Jiang Qiong felt a bit relieved, though his remarks annoyed her. There are many women in the world, but how many have you seen that are more beautiful than me? Jiang Qiong glared, stepping forward quickly to lean over Guan and stare at him. Their faces were less than 10 centimeters apart, and Guan, sitting on the ground, had to shift to the side. Jiang Qiong lifted her left foot, brushing past Guan's ear and stepping on the tree trunk, stopping his movement. "Why are you dodging? Do you find your martial master so repulsive?" Jiang Qiong snorted. Guan said awkwardly, "Repulsive, never. I'm just afraid of offending you." He glanced downward for a moment. Jiang Qiong was wearing a skirt, though there were pants underneath. Her posture was still quite improper. Offend? Jiang Qiong withdrew her foot, squatted down, and started pulling at Guan's clothes. "What are you doing?" Guan exclaimed in fear. Jiang Qiong replied, "In case that being really has his eyes on me, how could I refuse? Before that happens, let me fulfill you." Although Sword Venerable Fudao was strong, Guan was more important to her, even the most important. Guan crawled away, but Jiang Qiong's strength increased, making it difficult for him to reveal his true cultivation level, leaving him in a dilemma. Stop this? This isn't right. By now, Guan's robe was in disarray, even his hair was loose, and his face was flushed with embarrassment. Jiang Qiong laughed, stopping her actions, and said, "Even if you don't comply tonight, it won't matter. I will force it if necessary." Ooh, Guan panicked. Was she really going to do this? "I've never even been with my junior sisters. How could I be with you, a witch?" Guan was about to call for Sword Venerable Fudao's intervention. Just then, Jiang Qiong stopped, stood up angrily, and said, "Look at you, so cowardly. Strip down and get into the cauldron. Did you really think I wanted to do anything to you? I'm just preparing an excellent body-tempering concoction for you." Guan was stunned for a moment and then sighed in relief, quickly getting up. He walked past Jiang Qiong, only to get kicked in the butt by her. "Hurry up and strip," Jiang Qiong said impatiently, feeling truly annoyed. In fact, she really had the impulse just now, but seeing Guan's terrified look, she couldn't bring herself to do it. This made her both embarrassed and angry. Did this kid really think so little of her? Was it because of etiquette? Jiang Qiong thought of how Guan grew up in a righteous path environment, surely respecting etiquette. She didn't respect that because she came from the demon path. With this thought, she felt much better again. After all, if he felt nothing, why did he glance down? Jiang Qiong smiled. Guan approached the medicine cauldron, quickly stripped, and then leaped into the cauldron, splashing water. "It's a bit hot." Guan's voice came from within the cauldron. Jiang Qiong said coldly, "Endure it. Are you afraid of a little pain?" Guan remained silent, not daring to speak further. The 8 scenic caves fell into silence. After placing all the medicinal ingredients into the cauldron, Jiang Qiong took out a blood-colored tower. She sat down and inspected it carefully. Guan poked his head out and asked, "What treasure is this?" Jiang Qiong, staring at the blood-colored tower, replied, "This is the Blood Domain soul-suppressing tower, an immortal treasure. It's incredibly powerful and I got it by sheer chance." Guan had to give up. Jiang Qiong asked Guan about his experiences over the years, and Guan did not hide anything, but as she listened, Jiang Qiong became increasingly unable to withstand it. Planting herbs, why are you always planting herbs?" Jiang Qiong exclaimed. Guan pouted, "Yeah, just planting herbs. What else do you expect me to have experienced? Don't underestimate herb planting. Different medicinal herbs bring different feelings." He began to enthusiastically recount his planting experiences. Jiang Qiong suppressed the irritability in her heart and listened carefully. Gradually, her mood calmed down. To her surprise, listening to Guan talk about his farming life was quite interesting, bringing her thoughts back to her childhood. Time flew by. Until nightfall, Jiang Qiong bid farewell and left. Guan did not leave the 8 scenic caves, planning to go out early the next morning. In the following winter, discussions about divine exotic cities spread throughout the Supreme Sect cities, and Li Ya's name reverberated throughout the immortal cultivation world, surpassing Sword Venerable Fudao and Panin. Many believed that with the control of divine exotic city, Li Ya would become an immortal in the future. Moreover, Li Ya was very young, and some already called him the best of the younger generation, even surpassing in Hao. Li Ya's prominence did not affect Gu An's life. With the capture of divine exotic city, many great cultivators overseas left, but some cultivators stayed behind, joining various sects, with the Supreme Sect absorbing the most. Because Li Ya hailed from the Supreme Sect. With control of divine exotic city, Li Ya didn't need to wait for the future. He possessed power beyond a loose immortal, to the extent that even wandering immortals couldn't do anything to him. In this way, a new spring arrived. That year, the Supreme Sect's New Year celebrations were livelier than ever. It was said that the Supreme Sect was preparing to head south in search of an island to establish a city, with the support of the Star Sea congregations, making the task much easier. After the New Year, the Supreme Sect began recruiting disciples for the Southern Sea expedition, with 10,000 openings and excellent benefits, leading to active registrations across all cities. Guan remained busy harvesting medicinal herbs, occasionally worrying about the 7 stars spirit realms stirring up trouble. Among the conflicts sparked by divine exotic city, the 7 stars spirit realms suffered the most losses, but they currently appeared very calm, which made Guan even more suspicious that they were brewing something. By March, the disciples of the Supreme Sect gradually put the matter of divine exotic city aside. On this day, Guan went to the Outer Sect Book Collection Hall to hand over the last volume of Journey to the West. Despite the great elder Feng Shang's earnest attempts to persuade him to stay, Guan found an excuse to leave. Led by the servant Hu Shaojian of the Sea Protection Mansion, Guan strolled around Immortal Seeking Island, listening to the various disturbances on the sea. The friction between the Star Sea congregations and the 7 stars spirit realm is increasing. The 7 stars spirit realm has gone mad, constantly invading the Star Sea congregation's territories. It's said to be related to an Immortal Path Supreme treasure from 5 years ago. On a distant continent, the 7 stars spirit realm released an Immortal Path Supreme treasure for others to contest, which was eventually obtained by a minor cultivator. The Star Sea congregations then recruited that minor cultivator, thoroughly offending the 7 stars spirit realm, Hu Shaojian said with a sigh. Guan asked, why would the 7 stars spirit realm release the Immortal Path Supreme treasure? He had wondered about this before, finding it very puzzling. The divine exotic immortal spirit also didn't know the reason, thinking it was because it was being too powerful, making it impossible for the 7 stars spirit realm cultivators to find. So, they released divine exotic city. But considering it from the 7 stars spirit realm's perspective, even if they couldn't conquer divine exotic city themselves, they shouldn't give other powers the chance. Hu Shaojian pondered, it does seem unreasonable. Perhaps the 7 stars spirit realm needed an excuse to declare war on the Star Sea congregations? But using an Immortal Path Supreme treasure as bait seems too exaggerated. The two continued chatting as they walked. Guan wasn't worried about causing trouble with the topic since the surrounding cultivators were all discussing the conflicts between the 2 great maritime powers. Half a day later, Guan left Immortal Seeking Island and arrived at Heavenly Phoenix Mountain's Nianchu Cave, bringing Tian Yaoer, Tian Qing, and Tian Bai into the grotto heaven. He took out the seeds he bought today and had the 3 demons plant them. Though Tian Qing and Tian Bai had not yet shapeshifted, their nimble claws made them capable of handling the planting duties. While they were planting, Guan went to the entrance of the grotto heaven, using his mana to create a stele, and then inscribed characters with his sword Qi. Outer World Cave. The meaning was to be forever isolated from the world. In the future, Guin wouldn't bring others here to live. This would always be his secluded medicine valley, specifically providing him with a longer lifespan. Because the seeds planted in the outer world cave were all high-rank seeds of level 7 or above, no medicinal herbs had matured yet. He wasn't in a hurry, patiently waiting. When the first batch of herbs matured, it would bring him a significant increase in lifespan, something he eagerly anticipated. 2 ancient hours later, Guin took them out of the outer world cave, walking along the underground passage towards Nianchu Cave. I've prepared shape-shifting elixirs for you. You can shape-shift in the next few days, Guin said as he walked ahead. Upon hearing this, Tianqing and Tianbai were overjoyed and hurriedly came forward to thank their master for his gift. Demons could achieve shape-shifting through their own cultivation, but the shape-shifting elixir could speed up the process and increase the success rate. If they relied on themselves for shape-shifting, failure would mean death or severe injury, similar to crossing a tribulation. Master, what about me? Tian Yaoer asked as she held Tianbai, squeezing in beside Guin with a pitiful expression. Guin replied, I've prepared a batch of qi blood-enhancing elixirs for you. The elixirs he prepared for Tian Yaoer weren't ones he refined but were purchased on Immortal Seeking Island, worth a fortune, and made by the top alchemy sect on the sea, the Purple Pill Palace. Whether Lu Lingjun could win them over remained uncertain to Guin. An hour later, Lu Lingjun left with the White Spirit Demon Emperor. Guin and Yu Yingying saw them off. As Lu Lingjun's figure disappeared into the sky, Yu Yingying looked at Guin, patted his shoulder, and laughed. When the Ascension sect is established, you can be counted as an elder. Your destiny will change, remember to thank me. Guin looked at her, curiously asking, You're not even an Ascender. Why are you so enthusiastic? Once the Ascension sect was established, those without Ascension experience would surely be marginalized or scorned, as the sect's teachings would focus on gathering Ascenders. It's interesting. In this lifetime, if you could do a few notable things, it wouldn't be a waste of time in this mortal world. If you could leave a mark, that would be even better, Yu Yingying said matter-of-factly. Guin was surprised. With your background, why do you sound like... He noticed that in her true form, Yu Yingying had a peculiar causal force within her, limiting her spiritual power's growth. Once her cultivation couldn't progress, even with a maximum lifespan of 5,000 years, Yu Yingying would surely die at the age of 400. Yu Yingying looked at him and sniffed, Right, I already know my fate. In this lifetime, I can't pursue the immortal path. With that, she turned and left. Not wanting to continue the conversation with Guin didn't press further. Having come this far, he asked a single question, as he wouldn't involve himself in Yu Yingying's fate. He couldn't ensure his junior sister's immortality, so he wasn't qualified to help others. He turned and went back inside to practice alchemy, planning to bring the elixirs to the outer gate city in a few days. The time came to the end of summer. In the third medicine valley, Guin was studying the Ziwei Array Chronicles when he suddenly felt something, casting his gaze outside the window, frowning slightly. Why has this guy been so restless recently? Guin pondered in confusion. In the past month, Liya repeatedly used the power of Divine Exotic City, starting anew today. Liya was far from him, and he couldn't capture him with divine sense due to the prohibitions of the Star Sea congregations along the way. He didn't want to alarm their great cultivators. Even without using divine sense, he could learn about Li Ya's situation through the mental connection with the divine exotic immortal spirit. After a moment of hesitation, Guin inquired the divine exotic immortal spirit with his mind. Soon, the spirit informed him of the reason. Liya was exploring a secret realm, one of the legacy secret realms of the Star Sea congregations. If he succeeded, he'd gain the ancient legacy of the congregations. With the power of Divine Exotic City, Liya had already reached the final challenge, facing the remnants of the Inheritor's soul, with the army of divine soul demons unable to capture it for a while. At present, it seemed enlightenment was the best way to extend the maximum lifespan. But how difficult enlightenment was. This third medicine valley is not simple. It sends out several foundation establishment realm disciples each year to help them become outer sect disciples. I've heard that too. It's said that the valley master is the disciple of the sect leader. The most important thing is that the valley master is very generous. Some were excited, some were anxious, and some were so nervous that they were shaking all over. When they saw Xiaochuan and Guan approaching, they all shut up. Their gazes fell on Guan and were amazed by his appearance and demeanor. So young, so handsome. Guan's eyes swept over these servant disciples, constantly checking their lifespans. In the past decades, there were no few buried talents among the servant disciples recruited by Xiaochuan, but none had an ultimate lifespan exceeding 1,000 years. Guan had never focused on cultivating servant disciples, so the master-disciple bond was not close. With one glance, all had ultimate lifespans of 100 or 200 years, occasionally showing up one with over 300 years. Yang Jian, Energy Cultivation Realm 3rd Layer 15/97/9999. Yang Jian? Even true Lord Erlang appeared? And with the same ultimate lifespan as in Hao. Guan's gaze fixed on Yang Jian, he pointed at Yang Jian and transmitted his voice to Xiaochuan, asking him to call that kid out. Yang Jian wore simple gray clothes, his face slightly black, looking like he had been doing farm work since childhood, but his facial contours were very good. If well-groomed, he would appear handsome. He stood in the crowd, very inconspicuous. Watching Xiaochuan approach, everyone held their breath, both nervous and expectant. Xiaochuan squeezed into the crowd, patted Yang Jian on the shoulder, and asked him to come out. Yang Jian was stunned, and quickly followed, feeling very anxious, afraid that Guan would find him unpleasant. When he stood in front of Guan, he heard Guan ask, "Introduce yourself." Yang Jian came to his senses and hurriedly said, "My name is Yang Jian, from Longhu Town, Su Province. I am 15 years old and my family has 9 members." Before Guan could speak, Xiaochuan couldn't help but ask, "Yang Jian? Which Yang, which Jian?" Yang Jian scratched his head awkwardly and said, "It's Yang Jian from the Investiture of the Gods, true Lord Erlang from Journey to the West. I really like these 2 books, so I changed my name to Yang Jian after joining the Supreme Sect. My old name was Yang Xiaohu, which sounded really bad." As soon as he finished speaking, the other servant disciples burst into laughter. Hearing this, Guan breathed a sigh of relief. "Scared me to death." He really thought this kid was Yang Jian from the Investiture of the Gods. After all, this nearly 10,000-year ultimate lifespan was too eye-catching. Chapter 229 Yang Jian's longing. With the passing of summer and the arrival of autumn, the third medicine valley gradually became tinged with yellow. Yang Jian came before the blood prison great saint, respectfully presenting a platter filled with flowers and fruits. The blood prison great saint lay on the ground and gave him a casual glance. "Is it washed clean?" he asked indifferently. Yang Jian quickly nodded and whispered, "I washed it 3 times. The blood prison great saint lowered his head to sniff, then said, "Not bad. Keep it up, you may go now." Yang Jian stood up, bowed, and then retreated. Ever since Guan approved his name, he had been more driven than the other disciples. Not only was he busy with chores in the valley, but he also served the blood prison great saint and the white spirit rat diligently. His industriousness made the other servant disciples feel disdainful, so they gradually began to distance themselves from him. Despite this, he did not feel embarrassed but was instead full of anticipation. He knew full well that with his average talent, if he only did what the other disciples did, he would at most earn a single foundation establishment pill. He believed that even if he reached foundation establishment, it wouldn't change his fate. There were many Foundation Establishment Realm disciples in the outer sect who still remained at the bottom. But if he could gain the favor of the Valley Master, that would be entirely different. Lacking aptitude and connections, Guwen represented the greatest opportunity in Yang Jian's eyes. He didn't know how to go about pleasing Guwen deliberately, so he used his spare time to take care of Guwen's mounts and spirit pets. Yang Jian stood at the wooden fence, looking out over the vast expanse of the Medicine Valley's garden. He wiped the sweat from his face, filled with hopes for the future. Being able to join such a Medicine Valley was already very fortunate. Next, he needed to seize this fortune. Days went by one after another. In late autumn, someone came to visit Guwen. It was Wu Ju, whom he hadn't seen in many years. Wu Ju, visiting the third Medicine Valley for the first time, was amazed by its grandeur. "I'm looking for Guwen," Wu Ju said, grabbing a person. Coincidentally, that person was Yang Jian. Yang Jian was sweeping the ground and couldn't help but ask, "May I ask for your name, Senior? What is your relationship with the Valley Master?" "My name is Wu Ju. Guwen and I are brothers. I've been away for many years and came here specifically to see him today," Wu Ju replied. Hearing this, Yang Jian dared not be careless. He asked Wu Ju to wait for a moment and ran all the way to Xiaochuan to report the matter, asking Xiaochuan to make the decision. Xiaochuan then went to Guwen's pavilion and relayed the story at the door. In fact, Guwen had already sensed Wu Ju's arrival, but since Wu Ju had now cultivated the energy-concealing sorcery, it was hard for him to detect directly. So he waited for his disciples to report it to him. "Bring him over," came Guwen's voice from inside the room. Xiaochuan immediately called out to Yang Jian, sending the waiting Yang Jian downstairs on an errand. Just as Yang Jian turned around, Wu Ju suddenly rushed past like a gust of wind, startling him so much that he widened his eyes. He stood there dumbfounded, watching Wu Ju leave a trail of afterimages as he swiftly went upstairs. Even Xiaochuan, who was upstairs, had his hair blown around and stood frozen in place. Wu Ju pushed open the door, saw Guwen, and smiled, turning around to close the door behind him. Xiaochuan came to his senses and turned to descend the stairs. Yang Jian was still stunned. It wasn't until Xiaochuan beckoned to him that he finally snapped out of it. He didn't inquire about Wu Ju's identity, but in his heart, a great determination ignited. He also wanted to become a great cultivator like Wu Ju. On the other side, inside the room, Guwen poured tea for Wu Ju and listened to him recount his experiences over the years. After sitting down and adjusting his mindset, he used lifespan detection on Wu Ju as if he were about to open a blind box. Wu Ju, Nascent Soul Realm, Level 8 124/890/7600, so many years had passed, but Wu Ju's maximum lifespan had not increased, indicating that he hadn't made any breakthroughs in path enlightenment for decades. Guwen felt a bit disappointed. He had hoped that Wu Ju could continue his path enlightenment indefinitely. Of course, with Wu Ju's current talent and status, reaching the Nirvana realm before the age of 7,600 wouldn't be difficult. However, Guwen thought it a pity that Wu Ju wouldn't reach the ultimate lifespan limit of 9,999 years. Wu Ju didn't notice any change in Guwen's expression and continued to talk excitedly about his experiences over the years. Guwen listened attentively. The timid boy from back then had now grown to be a capable individual. Hearing him now also made Guwen feel somewhat emotional. After a long time, Wu Ju began to speak about his troubles. "The Emperor treats me very well and has tried hard to win me over, but my master also treats me exceptionally, training me without reservation. Now, the Zhou family behind my master is not only in conflict with the Taizong dynasty but is also challenging the Supreme Sect." Wu Ju spoke with a face full of anguish. He had embarked on the immortal cultivation path at the Supreme Sect, so he had deep feelings for it. When the Zhou family left the Supreme Sect, it made things difficult for him. Hence, he chose to serve Li Xiandao to avoid the disputes. But now, with the Zhou family supporting the great Jiang dynasty, a three-way war was imminent, and he faced another decision.